You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, and exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society.
And now, in Disney.
Well, we got a lot of big stories tonight to cover. Well, we know the elders in Illinois, they have to go to school. They have to get certified on understanding all about child molestation. And also, we have Geoffery Jackson. Well, we realize he now lied. I mean, we know that for a long time at the Australia Royal Commission. But the daily text of October 5th, just a few days ago, it really spells it out. Geoffery Jackson is a liar. Wow, we've got so much to talk about tonight. Stay with us. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome in. Welcome in to the Six Screens live programs. We've been doing this now for 16 years. We're not giving up now. My name is Rick Farron, and I'm coming to you from the apostate capital of the world, right up here in Boston, Massachusetts. And my friends, I am telling you, and I know I tell you every week, but I just want to reiterate it. I am a happy camper. We are seeing the Watchtower in free fall. It is going downhill fast. Now, we're having so many people call in. We had a number of new people calling in to our program that Anne Marie just did, the Touched by the Tentacles program. And we hope that new ones can call in too during this broadcast and many of the broadcasts that we'll have on later on as well. So I want you to know, I know it's hard, and many of you guys are still PMOs. You're still kind of physically in, but mentally out. And I know it's hard. You're afraid that, oh, what if the elders hear me on the six screens? What if my children or my father and mother hear me on the six screens? Hey, don't worry. I don't think they're listening in. But even if they were, they shouldn't be. You could pick on them as well. Well, what were you doing listening in? But if you're kind of afraid to call into the program, I have a voice changer here. We'll put you on the voice changer, and nobody will recognize your voice. Let me just give you a little sample. Now, I'm thinking that if we put you on the voice changer, we can make you sound like a woman if you're a man. We can make you sound like a man if you're a woman. We can give you some echo. We can do a lot. Just listen. I'm going to put the voice changer on. Hello. My name is Rick. Hold on. Hello, my name is Rick Farron. I'm calling in from the city. So we can we'll put you on that. All right, we'll put you. I got different ones here. Just tell me who you want to sound like, and we'll put that on for you. So, anyways, I'm glad you're with us. I really, really am. We are having a good time here tonight. We have got so many stories to cover, and then you don't want to miss it. At the end of the broadcast, we'll keep it right on YouTube Live. But we're going to be having a man come in from New York. He's a professor at New York State University. His name is David the professor. And he'll be coming on tonight. He's not one of Jehovah's Witnesses, never has been one of Jehovah's Witnesses. His relatives are Jehovah's Witnesses. And David wants to really help all of the ex-witnesses getting shunning before state legislators. And he's doing a good job. He's got a legislator that he's been speaking with in the state of New York, and the legislator is very concerned about what's going on in the Watchtower. So David's going to be on at 9:30, and we're hoping to get the legislator from New York on as well. David said he might come on as well. So you don't want to miss this program. We'll be able to ask a lot of questions, so that's coming up at 9:30 tonight. All right, let's get right into the news tonight. And I think we have to start off by the Watchtower and Hurricane Ian. Yeah, well, we know it was one of the biggest hurricanes that ever hit the United States. That's what they're saying on the news. Massive destruction, decimation on the southwest coast of Florida. But I'm wondering this week, why is the Watchtower having very little to say? I mean, we're talking massive, massive devastation. In the Watchtower, I got on jw.org and I rolled back a few days ago, and there was a comment concerning it, but nothing like, oh, we're so hurt to see so many of our brothers suffering and we're stepping up our efforts to help them. Nothing like that. And I'll read you some of their comments. But the Watchtower Corporation, it has been somewhat silent about one of the worst hurricanes to impact the state of Florida in years, maybe the worst. Now, it's interesting that they had so little to say. Well, perhaps they're still assessing how to capitalize financially on the devastation, because we know that's what the Watchtower does. They're always sniffing out a buck. They're always trying to find a way that they can sniff out and get ways to make money off of these disasters. Well, I'm going to put up a picture here. I want you to see it. This came across the internet this week, and I want you to see this picture. I think you'll find it very fascinating. Well, I did have the picture. Where's the picture? Well, anyways, it was a picture of a yellow truck, a flatbed truck that was going down the highway. It said Watchtower Disaster Relief on it. I mean, bright yellow, Watchtower Disaster Relief. They wanted everyone to know that, hey, we're the Watchtower. We're going to go help the brothers and sisters and the people in Florida. So there it was going down the highway. I know it had a bunch of containers on the flatbed truck. Now, these were containers. I'm sure they didn't come from the Watchtower organization itself. They came from people who donated clothing, blankets, canned goods, water. They had a number of containers on the truck. And all of those containers, I'm positive, friends, that they came from the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves. See, the organization, they're going to take an opportunity like Hurricane Ian, and they're going to milk this hurricane for all the publicity they can get, including that yellow, bright yellow truck driving down the highway, Watchtower release disaster relief efforts. So there you go. I mean, but that's okay. I see other groups doing that too. So I'm not going to pick specifically on that. And I hope their motive is good. But you know, there's something very odd, and we've talked about this numerous times on the 6 screens, that they pressure all the Jehovah's Witnesses who have had their houses damaged and are in need of repair. They pressure these ones. We'll do the work for you, but you know, when the insurance check comes in, could you donate the check to us? Now, what are you going to do if you're a Jehovah's Witness and your house was damaged? And Watchtower shows up with some volunteers that want to rebuild your house, and say, you know, we'll just take your insurance check when it comes in. You're going to fall for it, right? But this disaster relief efforts that the Watchtower is so eager to spread all over the world that they help, well, it's a relief scam. It's a big moneymaker for the Watchtower organization. And just let me tell you why. You're probably saying, well, Rick, you know, give us some facts. I mean, give us some facts. How can you come on here tonight and say that this is a big scam? Well, I know for a fact that they send unqualified volunteers to repair Jehovah's Witness members' houses. Now, not everybody's house, but Jehovah's Witness houses. And these are unqualified volunteers. These are people that really don't know a lot about construction. These are people that haven't been trained in construction. I know that as a fact. My daughter, she went down to Florida, not during this hurricane, maybe she did, but she's a loyal witness, and she went down. She was on the roofing committee. Not the committee, but she was on the roofing activities where they put roofers up on the roof. She never had any training in roofing other than what the Watchtower told her to do. Take a hammer, here's a shingle, put it down, put one over the other, and nail it. I mean, that's probably the only training she ever got. but they send these unqualified volunteers to repair the Jehovah's Witness houses. And then they encourage them, as I said earlier, to give the insurance payment. Now, these unqualified volunteers, they might give about $10,000 worth of work. Now, the labor cost of the Watchtower is very little. In other words, to put a roof on a house today, let's just say they put a roof on a house. Well, on the average house today, you could spend upwards of $10,000 to have a roof put on. So let's say it's $10,000 worth of work. Now, the Watchtower has got this work for free. These are volunteers. And their labor cost of the Watchtower is nothing. These people are all doing it on their own dime. And yet, they'll spend some money on some shingles, some nails, supplies. And, when it's all done, the house is all fixed up, a new roof and other adjustments and other areas that are repaired that have been destroyed, they might get a big $50,000, $60,000 payment. And the Watchtower gets that, and they really spent very, very little doing this. So this way, the organization actually makes money off the disaster because the insurance compensates the homeowner for the labor required to restore their property. And all the organization workers do is for free. So all of these Jehovah's Witnesses doing it for free, but the Watchtower is collecting on their labor, which the insurance company will hand out. Friends, they never miss an opportunity to make themselves look good. And at the same time, they make a lot of money looking good. They really do. This is a unbelievable organization. They always have their hand out. They're always finding a way to make some money. So you might say, well, what's the point of fixing someone's house? They're going down there. They go to a Jehovah's Witness house. The Jehovah's Witness says they have insurance. And it would be wise if the Jehovah's Witness said, hey, look, I'm just going to wait until I can get adequate repair people in here. But they can't say that to the Watchtower. So what's the point of someone actually wanting the Watchtower to fix their house when they have insurance anyways, and they can get a reputable company to do the work for them? So it's obvious to me that, it's a scam. They're going to make money. And, do you remember seeing worldly people in some of these? Well, they show these disaster relief video clips on jw.org. Does it really show worldly people being helped? As a matter of fact, someone wrote to me this week when we were talking about this subject, and they said that they were in a congregation where worldly people, it was right after Hurricane Charlie. That was another hurricane that hit Florida a few years back, and it devastated a good part of the southwest coast of Florida as well. And so what they did is they had a Kingdom Hall there right near the disaster zone. And many of the Jehovah's Witnesses would not accommodate the worldly people who were coming. In fact, all the Jehovah's Witnesses, they approached, the worldly people approached the Kingdom Hall, and they were looking for shelter and water from Hurricane Charlie. Do you think the Watchtower helped them? Oh, no, they didn't. And when this particular man who gave me the information, he said when he went to his elder and inquired, well, why don't we help these poor people? These poor people need a place to stay. They need water. They need food. And the elder said, we take care of our own first. So, you guys think about that. They do. They do take care of their own first. Now, I will read you right from jw.org about the deadly storm that did happen here just recently in Florida, Hurricane Ian. What the Watchtower is saying is this deadly storm led to more than 1,200 publishers in Florida either evacuating or being displaced from their homes. Circuit overseers are working together with local design construction field representatives to assist elders in caring for the immediate needs of the victims. And so they're saying the circuit overseers are there, and the LDC field representatives are there from the Watchtower, and they're there to assist the needs of the victims. That's Jehovah's Witness victims, I'm sure. Now, in the 70s and 80s, and you guys can remember, in the 90s, that the organization would encourage congregations to contribute to the disaster relief. And I can remember, and I brought it up last week as well, I worked to bring food over and clothing and blankets over to the Plant City Assembly Hall in Plant City, Florida. And then we gathered all of the blankets and all of the necessary items, and we brought it over to the Plant City. It was tons of it. I mean, it was trucks full of it. And that was all provided by the local brothers and sisters. And that's what they were going to send into, was Hurricane Andrew is the hurricane they were responding to. But all of this was going to go to brothers and sisters in the hard hit areas. Now, do you guys remember that? Now, I remember all of that work that we put in gathering the food and all the necessities that were needed. It never got down to the witnesses in South Florida. Somehow there was a snafu in the system and it never got there. But it was the brothers and sisters locally. I can remember boxes of food, clothing that was donated by the brothers and sisters, not the organization. So what did the organization of the Watchtower do? Well, they took the credit for it. And, in fact, it was even asked, if you asked the Watchtower, what did you do? The brothers and sisters gave all this food and all of these necessities. What did you do? And the organization response is they were going to help all the worldly people who desperately needed spiritual food, free literature, no contributions to cover the cost of printing, to help the worldly people out in the time of need. I don't know how many watchtowers you can eat to stay alive, but spiritual food, can you imagine the Watchtower down there now in Florida going around giving pamphlets and folders and Watchtower magazines? That's not going to help the people. Spiritual food doesn't help at all. Go ahead, you're on with us. What would you like to say?
That paper makes a good paper towel.
Well, absolutely, Pixie. But
I filed a claim down there, and I gave my zip code, and she said total devastation. So when they have the emergency meetings in Fort Myers, Sanibel, and some of the surrounding areas, they don't have a library or a Red Cross to meet in. They're meeting in the swap meet field. It's total devastation, like a war zone.
Oh, yeah, it's wicked. It's wicked. But I actually read off of jw.org. I'm reading about the effect on the brothers and sisters, that is Jehovah's Witness brothers and sisters. First of all, in Cuba, one brother was killed, according to Watchtower. 2 brothers suffered minor injuries. 300 homes sustained minor damage. 491 homes sustained major damage. 63 homes were destroyed. 40 meeting places sustained major damage. 1 assembly hall sustained minor damage, and 3 assembly halls sustained major damage. That was just in Cuba. In Florida.
Wow.
In Florida.
Well, but for the grace of God, if I had rushed to my vacation, I wouldn't be talking to you now. So the condo's gone, but I'm still here.
Well, good for you, Pixie. I'm glad things are okay for you. But in Florida, none of the brothers or sisters were killed in the storm. So that's good news. 2 publishers.
I think the death toll in Fort Myers is about 90. So
yeah,
there were injuries.
I know it's up there, but none of the witnesses died or killed in the storm. 2 publishers suffered minor injuries. 5,874 publishers are currently displaced from their homes. 1,559 homes sustained minor damage. 367 homes sustained major damage. 47 homes were destroyed. 329 homes have been stabilized to date. And so it says 38 theocratic facilities sustained minor damage. So this would be, kingdom halls, assembly halls. It says 1 kingdom hall sustained major damage and 1 assembly hall sustained major damage. So these are some of the things that they were saying on jw.org, but they made it clear that those working in disaster relief, that all of the relief efforts are in accordance with COVID-19 safety guidelines. So, geez, I hope that all those hardworking brothers and sisters are not going down to Florida and busting their butts in the hot sun, having to wear masks. Geez, I hope that's not happening. That would be torture. That would be torture. So that's about, all that the Watchtower is saying here. They're not making a big thing out of it. I mean, the news media is, but it's just like a passing news story on jw.org. But I mean, maybe they're going to get ready to rev it up and really find out how they can capitalize the best over this tragedy and take advantage of it. I mean, that's what the Watchtower does. I hate to always come on here and be picking so profusely on the Watchtower, but man, they deserve to be picked on. We've all heard stories before after the hurricane.
Your insurance guy will give you a legitimate worker for whatever kind of damage you have. And here in Virginia, when I lost my sliding door, I'm not sure a brother didn't smash it, but he was not qualified to fix it. There was only one sliding door company within 100 miles that could do the repair, and I got them.
Well, you're better off getting them than getting the Watchtower to do it. That's for sure. Pixie.
But the average contractor can't do a sliding door.
Oh, no, that's a specialized field. That's a specialized field, yeah. Well, thank you, Pixie. Thank you for checking in. All right, let's continue on here. Unless someone has something to say. Does someone want to talk about relief?
Could I say,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Rick?
Yes.
I just wanted to say real quick, so often you apologize for quote unquote picking on the Watchtower. I have never heard you pick on the Watchtower. All you do is tell the truth. And it's sad that the truth is so nasty, but it's the truth and you are saying it out loud. And I want to thank you because if it wasn't for you and JW World News, we wouldn't know a lot of what we know because of you. Thank you, Rick.
Well, you're very welcome, Anne-Marie. Very welcome.
Hey, Rick?
Yes.
Remember, going back to your contractors and your contracting, remember, those Jehovah's Witnesses that go and do that work, they have to sign like a contract to go and do work on the kingdom halls and everything else, and they're liable for getting hurt on the job. They have a little contract they have to sign before they go and they do any of this work. They're liable for their own problems and their own injuries, and the Watchtower is not held liable for none of that stuff. I know that for a fact.
Well, it is a fact, David. And thank you for bringing that up, that they're on their own dime. And we had some folks call in last week that kind of spoke a little bit about that. And we talked about that last week, that, you fall off the roof and rushed off to the hospital. Don't expect Watchtower to pick the bill up. Jeez.
No, they will. They will not, because they have painters, they have carpenters, they have laborers, and all this other stuff. They have to sign a waiver saying that they're not going to they're liable to doing the work on their own, and on top of that, their insurance has to pick up anything that happens to them. Just like the Jehovah's Witnesses were up on a Kingdom Hall where my wife goes to the Kingdom Hall at. I have pictures of that where they were teaching them how to do roofing. 5 guys were up on that roof, and they were nailed down to that roof. And I give the pictures to Mikey and Kim so they could have those pictures. I sat in the parking lot and watched and took all the pictures that I could on a video camera and on a regular camera.
Yeah.
And they were up on the roof, and if they would have fell down, it would have been on their problem. And they were trying to teach you guys how to inspect the roof.
Yeah. Well, they don't have real training, you know?
No, none of them do.
Yeah.
And just like you were saying about the contracts and everything, I know of a lady that one of the elders they did the work for. It was $18,000 for their stuff, and they went and they did the work. Then the lady had to pay the loan back, and they went and they took $18,000 and some odd bucks and went and did all the work for the lady and ripped her off and only did part of the work that they were supposed to be doing, and they cheated her out of all the vinyl siding that she had. They bought some cheap plastic vinyl siding, and they didn't put down the stuff that she asked for. And I put a bid in for that job myself. And I didn't get it, but the lady trusted me more than she trusted the 4 brothers who were going to do all the vinyl siding that they were doing.
Well, there you go, David.
I know.
You know, you firsthand, you know what's going on. Thank you, David. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Well, that's David down in Virginia. He knows. He got the pictures. He knows what's going on. His wife is a Jehovah's Witness. He isn't, but he knows what's going on. So let's see how that works out. So anyway.
Yeah, Mr. Farron.
Yes, Ken.
Yeah, just a quick comment right here before you get on to the next news story. The Watchtower Society in the past, especially in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and all that, used to criticize the other charitable organizations and everything and the religious charitable organizations for inefficiency and collecting money that is not being distributed to the needy like they said they were and so forth. And now, this day and age right here, we find they are doing the same thing. They're collecting money, and they're not distributing it to the needy like they say they're going to. So a complete, double talk, double standards, all the way down the line right there, and fraud, abuse, and corruption in the Watchtower Society, just like a lot of these charitable organizations. And yeah, that's really outrageous what's going on in the Watchtower Society.
Well, Ken, the sickest thing about it is the Watchtower, Jehovah's Witnesses claim they're the only Christians on the planet. They're the only ones that witnessing for Jesus and Jehovah and talking about a real kingdom, and the only ones that show love on the planet. That's them. I mean, this is what they get away with, and people believe it, sad to say. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, and then you find out at the end that they're more corrupt than anybody else on the face of the earth. So,
well, I tell you, I always think of the mafia. When I think of the Watchtower, I always think of the mafia. Now, listen, I'm not trying to disrespect the mafia here, but they're worse than the mafia. They are worse than the mafia because they come in God's name. At least the mafia will, they will let you know they're a criminal organization. But the Watchtower, not only a criminal organization, but they say that they're not in the Jehovah's organization, God's organization on earth. Terrible, terrible. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Okay, we'll keep
Hey,
listening.
Rick?
Yes.
The old neighborhood club, at least they didn't prey on women and children and old people.
Yeah, that's true. The mafia at least had respect for certain people. The Watchtower has no respect for anybody, even their own kind.
No, they don't.
It's unreal. Thank
Hey,
you.
Rick?
Yes.
Hey, Rick, weren't you saying that in some countries they're losing their charitable status because they haven't been able to prove that they really are a charity? Wasn't it Norway or?
Yeah, well, it was in Norway they were looking into it. In Belgium, they were looking into it. And because of some of their practices for shunning, for one thing, that was really what got the attention. that if the Watchtower was going to continue to shun and cause family problems as it does, they were going to have their charity status pulled. But it never happened. See, this is what happens, Susan. This is why I really get frustrated when I hear the Watchtower just walks away without a problem. They've got to be meddling with the big guys. Somebody's putting a squash. You know, all of this stuff comes up about the Watchtower, how corrupt, how evil it is, but it stops there. It doesn't go anywhere. Who's putting the kibosh to all of this? That's what I would like to know.
Well, Rick, let me ask you this question. Let's say there's a household, and there's a husband and a wife. One's disfellowship, one's not. Their house is destroyed or needs repairs. Do the brothers repair it or not?
Well, I mean, the brothers wouldn't come there and repair it. No, in other words, if there was going to be money involved, the Watchtower might send them. Yes.
So the faithful witness gets punished because they may have need, but because they have a disfellowship running their family, then their house wouldn't get fixed.
Well, I would say that. Now, I want to say that, you know, I'm speaking here of the Watchtower organization. They're the mean people. They're the bad people. There are Jehovah's Witnesses that are nice. As a matter of fact, there's many Jehovah's Witnesses that do go and help their brothers and sisters, you know, do repair on their car, a little work around the yard or whatever. But it's the Watchtower organization that doesn't want to do anything. The local elders or the local Jehovah's Witnesses, I have to say, I've seen them step in and help, but never in 16 years of broadcasting here on the Six Screens Telenetwork have I ever heard of the Jehovah's Witness in need getting any help from the organization. Never, ever, ever. Never happened. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, well, that was a good question, Chief.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Hey, it's Chad. I wasn't going to say anything, but, you know, this whole thing in Florida, I got a phone call 2 days ago from a friend of mine down in Florida, and we used to go to church together at Salvation Army. We were both members of the Heartland Division, and she is now in Florida. She lives there, and she knows I used to be an operations manager with Emergency Disaster Services. And I asked her what kind of help and everything has been going on. And I asked her specifically after she got done telling me what the Jehovah's Witnesses are doing. And she said, well, mostly when you do see them, they're usually just standing around trying to give out free booklets and stuff.
Well, that, you know, I laugh at that, Chad, but I know that's the truth. That's the truth. You know.
Yes, it is. And go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want you to talk.
Now, when I was in Emergency Disaster Services, that was what the Salvation Army does for, you know, disasters, like what's going on down in Florida. We had different things, and my thing as an operations manager was I was responsible for staging everything, finding locations, donations, that kind of stuff. And there's different parts that the Salvation Army does. They have what they call canteen trucks, which are basically like food trucks. They go around, and their thing is they go right into ground zero, and they start making sandwiches, and they give out free food, free water, free drinks. They'll also have trucks with clothes, stuff like that, and they give it out to people, blankets, sleeping bags. They set up different shelters for people to stay in until they can, you know, get back on their feet. But, you know, with the whole thing with the Watchtower saying, well, they want to oversee people's spiritual needs and feed them spiritual food, why can't you give them a sandwich to go along with that spiritual food? Because I know when I was in Salvation Army, our primary goal was to help people and to let them know we were also there for their spiritual needs. We showed up to give them the physical help, but we reiterated we were there for their spiritual needs as well. Why can't the Watchtower do the same thing? And let me tell you something, that's a really good write-off to have for taxes.
Well, no, well, thank you, first of all, for your service with the Salvation Army. And they help people. There's no doubt about it. That's a real Christian organization. I mean, I'm not sure what their teachings are, but at least they do show what Christ wanted people to do is help one another in times of need, especially. But I have to tell you, Chad, when the Twin Towers were hit back in 2001, what I kept hearing about all of the workers, the responders, first responders, all the people coming in from all over the country, and they were working to help all the poor people that been hurt in New York. And all these ministries. I can remember on the front page of the New York Times, they showed some ministers from, I believe it was the Baptist church, and they had tables set up down at Ground Zero, and they had coolers filled with water and sandwiches and food, and they were giving it to the first responders. And I thought that was wonderful. So I called the Watchtower. This was about, I'd say, probably a week after the towers were hit. And I was still a witness at a time, but I was wondering what we could all do as Jehovah's Witnesses to help the poor people in New York City that were suffering and the responders that were working so hard. So I called the Watchtower and I talked to someone in the legal department. I don't know why they put me there, but I talked to someone in the legal department. I asked them, what is the Watchtower doing? What are they doing? I see all these other Christian organizations are coming in and they're giving food and water and assisting with these poor people that have been so hurt. What's the Watchtower doing? And this is the answer. I got the answer that, well, Brother Farron, we're sending 11 trained elders down. We have printed new Watchtowers, a new article on terrorism. We're going to really try to help the people that have been hurt in New York City and explain to them why this is all happening. So we're going to give them Watchtower magazines. That was the answer. That was the answer. So,
my goodness!
isn't that? And I somewhere I have that recorded. I wish I had it ready here tonight. I'd play it because it was disgusting.
I gotta say, the Watchtower could make asininity a career, and they would get rich off of it.
Oh,
because,
yeah.
And I'm not saying that to be unkind, but I'll tell you right now, like the whole thing with the, talk about, like you were mentioning earlier about how they work with the construction and all that.
Right.
I know right now the Salvation Army, they're putting together missions teams, and they're trying to get it's hard because school has just started back. But right now they're putting together missions teams. If it was the spring or the summer, they'd be getting the kids involved. These kids would go on mission trips to go down and help clean out houses, gut them, and even help rebuild some of them. And it doesn't cost the person. It's free labor for the person. And if they need help rebuilding, if they buy the supplies, the Salvation Army helps with getting them the hands to get the supplies, building stuff,
Well, there you go.
I feel so bad.
Well, we all feel bad about it. I mean, but the people that really should feel bad is the Watchtower and Jehovah's Witnesses. They should be the ones that are feeling bad. They should be the ones that are saying, hey, listen, what is my multi-billion-dollar corporation doing to help people? I'm always digging in my pockets. I'm always sending money to the Watchtower. What about some of this money we're sending? What about some of this money that they got selling off buildings? Can they dig into their pockets just a little bit? Can they, a few $1,000,000? That's pocket change to the Watchtower. So we got another story very much about the same thing. I came across an announcement to all congregations in the Philippines. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but I'm going to read you the announcement. But it's somewhat in the same category as what we're talking about here now. Let me just see what we got here. October. Let me make sure I got the right. Well, let me just make sure I got the right article up. Let me just get it right here. Just take me a second. But in the Philippines, there's an article that went out to the Watchtower, to all of the congregations in the Philippines. Now, this was on September 30th, 2022. That's just, that's a week ago. So it's for the elders. This is the announcement. I'm going to read it right verbatim. This is the announcement they read to the congregations. And the elders had this that they have to work with. It says, preparing for a potential food crisis. In view of anticipated food shortages in many parts of the world, we request all elders, especially group overseers, to continue being alert to the physical needs of the publishers in their respective field service groups. If a legitimate need exists and a publisher is lacking sufficient food and basic physical provisions, as loving shepherds, please consider what can be done to provide practical assistance. Publishers may also need the help of an elder in determining if they qualify for material assistance through government aid, social programs, or some other source. So, well, that letter, I guess, went to the elders. Maybe it wasn't read to the whole congregation, but you get the point. They're anticipating food shortages, and they're telling the elders that they're going to start, making provisions. That means them. That doesn't mean the Watchtower. That means the elders start, telling the friends to, save some canned goods, make sure you got some extra clothing and blankets, and that might be helpful too. But there's going to be food, basically, is what they're going to need right now in the Philippines. So, didn't we just talk last week on JW streaming on jw.org? Didn't they say that, one way that you can really make friends with Jehovah in Jesus, making friends in heaven, is by giving money to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society? That's what they said right there on their streaming program on jw.org. They also said that money, it goes to those that are in need. And are they really telling the truth here? Is the money that you were donating to the Watchtower, is it really going to help, say, the people here, not only in Hurricane Ian, but also with the Philippine problem? They're going to have some problems. So, at the same time, we have the governing body, and then this is what's really disturbing to me. They're telling you all the time, oh, we need more money, need more money. Yet at the same time, they continue to eat, drink, lodge, travel first class, reside in their luxury homes, drive expensive cars, wear expensive jewelry. They're treated like royalty. Meantime, the rank and file are suffering. They're suffering financially. They're suffering physically. They're suffering spiritually. And they don't really give a darn, do they? No, they don't. So they are encouraging the local Jehovah's Witnesses in the Philippines to contribute to food banks. And that's where they're going to get the help, is from the local yokels. But when I think about it, doesn't the organization, now, I want you to sit back and think of this statement. Just think of what I'm going to say, because I know this is going to resonate with you. Doesn't the organization always say, Jehovah always provides? But I'm going to add something to that. Jehovah always provides, but through Satan's system. So they're telling the elders to encourage the poor people in the Philippines who are going to have food shortages coming up here shortly to go to the government for help, and the government will be able to help you. So they're actually, go to Satan's system and they'll help you. So if you need help, just go to the government. And the Watchtower has always has done this, so to speak. They always, in fact, I know a personal elder myself who was in a congregation where they had a lot of issues. And there was a poor girl, a poor young 16, 17-year-old girl that got pregnant, and she wasn't married. And so, she went in before the elders. And from what I remember, she was disfellowshipped. but they told her to go to Catholic charities and they will help her. Well, where's the Jehovah's Witness help? This is an organization that takes your money. What are they doing to help the people? This is a billion-dollar corporation that cannot be bothered to provide for its own, period. Period. So, and haven't you heard it before too? I'm sick of some of these Watchtower euphemisms, some of these statements that the Watchtower makes. Did you ever hear that? Whoa, Jehovah and his organization is the best government ever. I've heard that statement many times before, but is it the best government ever? Come on, it's tyrannical. It does nothing for anybody. So consider this. You need food and you're in the Watchtower, you're starving. What do they tell you? Go to the authorities. And but it's just the opposite when it comes to child sex abuse, right? They say don't go to the authorities. So I mean, they get it. They win both ways here. They don't go to the authorities if you're being sexually abused, but go to the authorities if you need food. Well, I'll tell you what, I know personally that the Watchtower doesn't give out much of anything to anybody. And when those who locally need help, they get it from the elders' pockets, not the Watchtower. I have witnessed myself governing, elders, not governing body here, but elders. I have witnessed elders actually giving money to help ones in need in the Kingdom Hall. And maybe you've done that yourself even. Maybe you felt sorry for a family in the Kingdom Hall that was falling through the cracks financially. And you went up and you handed them some money to help them out. That was a good thing that you did. But would the Watchtower do it? No, not at all. They tell them to go get it from the government. We'll help you fill the paperwork out. So, I mean, can you imagine the Good Samaritan? Do you remember that story in the Bible? Can you imagine the Good Samaritan saying, okay, I got you, but let me see what government programs are available? Did the Good Samaritan do that? No. He stepped in, he helped this person out that needed help. He was a Good Samaritan. But the Watchtower is saying, well, let me see what we can do first. Let's see if some of these government agencies can give you the money before we do. Is that disgusting? Is that disgusting? It's just absolutely unbelievable. And you guys remember the food boxes, right? We talked about the food boxes a couple of years ago. Well, actually, it was a year ago. Not this summer, but a year ago in the summer, that the Jehovah's Witnesses, the government, actually it was a couple of years ago, and Trump was involved in this. President Trump, good old President Trump. Well, we remember what he did. He actually worked with the Department of Agriculture to give food boxes. These were boxes that were filled with vegetables and fruit, and even in some cases meat. And they gave it to the poor people because of COVID. And many of the witnesses got these boxes. And the Watchtower organization made sure they got these boxes. And they kind of implied to the Jehovah's Witnesses that they were behind this. It's the Watchtower giving you the boxes. And it wasn't.
They took complete credit for it.
Yeah, they did, Pixie. They took the credit for it. And at the same time, but now that the brothers and sisters in Philippines are going to have some food shortages, where were the food boxes? The only reason why the witnesses were giving those food boxes out is because it was free. And I also think they were making money distributing them. So, I mean, really, when you stop and think about that, that's why I come on here every Saturday night. I come on and I talk about this because it's just unbelievable. And if you've been listening in tonight, don't run the other way. You guys, I'm not sitting here ranting and raving and trying to do things and say things that aren't true. I'm telling you the truth. And if you're a witness, you're listening in, and I think that you also are getting this. And another thing too, the Jehovah's Witnesses have always questioned Christendom for building hospitals and charity work. Geez, I don't know how many Watchtower articles I read on how bad the Catholics are and they put all their money and efforts into charity work. And, they don't word exactly that way. But, when a Jehovah's Witness gets seriously ill, well, they go to a hospital. And many of those hospitals are owned by the Baptist, Catholics, and they're doing a good thing, right? These are organizations that are doing something and helping people. And now that there's a potential food crisis in the Philippines, and the brothers there are going to have some trouble, they're telling you to, get sources from the outside. The very thing they condemned is what they're now suggesting you to do. Go ahead, you're on with us.
Hey, Rick, I don't know what the future holds, but I store food because it's just the right thing to do. I still trust in God, like Jesus said, but I'm still not going to be stupid and not prepare for, something, or maybe like a month or 2 months of chaos, no electricity. I'm prepared for something. And I hope it never happens. And what hurts me, Rick, is that the Kingdom Hall can house so much food. The Kingdom Hall in the United States can the properties can allow for so much gardening. Forget regular pioneering. How about building gardens so we can feed the elderly, with their fruits and vegetables? So I look at a total waste. Watchtower and Jehovah are a complete total waste of talent that Jesus talked about. Jesus gave you a talent, and if you try to use your talent in the Kingdom Hall, you get kicked out. It's just a complete wasteland of talent. And it just hurts. All of those rooms, instead of using the back room to disfellowship people, why not have that back room as a pantry to make sure that the elderly always have affordable food? It's just so sad. And then why can't you use your back rooms instead of disfellowshipping children in the back room? Why can't you use the back rooms to educate the children on how to can food? And like the Amish do, they teach their children basic survival skills. And hopefully we'll never have to use them. But at least if the time were to come, like in Florida, you could use your survivor skills to preserve life. And it's just so sad. And the last thing I was going to ask you is I sent you an email. I don't know if you can talk about it in World News about what's happening in Poland with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, in fact, I got that email. Thank you for sending that to me. That story's coming up next, Gilbert. But you know what? You got my vote for governing body. You got my vote for governing body. You really do. You really do.
And let me just tell people why to do it. Go to GG for GB and send the ballot, because you've got to understand that there's a 22-year-old boy who's working in the mailroom, and we need to wake him up. We're doing it for other people. So whatever it is you do in apostasy work, you're doing it because you love your brother. You love them. And that's the whole point. And this is why we do what we do at Six Screens, because we love the Jehovah's Witnesses. This is how we conquer evil. Right before Jesus died, he says, "Forgive them, Father, because they do not know what they do." Jesus conquered evil with love. And that's what we want to do here.
Well, Gilbert, you're a man and a half. Don't you ever change? I like your comments, and people on YouTube like it as well. They all love you. You're a good man, and you and I are going to be working together. I know you sent me another email, too. I'll call you this week. We'll talk about that, okay?
Okay.
Right. Well, he's right. He's absolutely right. I like his idea there about putting food banks in the back room. What would be wrong with that? In the Kingdom Hall, in the back room, they got rid of all the old books anyways. So there must be some empty shelves. So what you do is
I asked him about it.
Oh, you say to the brothers and sisters, let's, if you want to bring in a can of string beans, some corn hash, or, maybe some Spam or something, and let's all, fill up our little back room for the brothers and sisters that can't afford things. No, you'd never hear anything like that. Are you kidding me? That would never happen in the Watchtower. But
I asked them if they needed emergency space blankets and flashlights and things for if people needed to evacuate to the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah, they did it.
And they acted like I was crazy.
Yeah, well, Pixie, this is what baffles me. I lose sleep at night. I'm just wondering, how is it that an organization that's so evil, How is it that an organization that's so corrupt and devious and fraudulent, how is it this organization continues to exist? This baffles me. This is unbelievable what goes on.
Well, maybe if they lose their charitable status, it'll bring them down. I've been looking at legal loopholes. I can't wait for the upcoming show to ask my one legal question about how can they do that? Because the First Amendment is important, but there's got to be some way to get rid of these kangaroo courts and the shunning. So I'm really looking forward to that upcoming show tonight. But maybe if they lose their charitable status, that might bring them down.
Well, that would bring them down, as Susan just was saying earlier, that, but what happens is these countries, Norway, Belgium, I believe it was even Denmark, that were looking into taking away their charitable status, but it's crickets. I hear nothing about it. I talk about it. I make a big deal about it, but nothing ever happens. That these guys get away with it.
I wish they would have a case where the state couldn't figure out how to solve it. If there's a case that's so complex that one of the 50 states can't solve it, it would have to go to the Supreme Court. I just wish somehow, some way, that this issue of shunning and kangaroo courts could get to the attention of the attorney frat.
Well, tonight now, you're right. At 9:30, we do have a man coming on. He's a New York State University professor, and he has been in contact with a legislator from the state of New York, and he might be coming on too. He couldn't promise me that, but he said that this legislator wanted to come on the 6 screens. We'll see if he comes on, but don't be disappointed if he doesn't. I'm just telling you ahead of time.
So that's what I want to ask him tonight. Well, I can't wait to hear the next story. You're doing great. And your promo last week about the Illinois story, that was really hard-hitting. You did a great job with that promo.
Well, thank you, Pixie. Yeah, no, we're going to do more of those news briefs. It worked out very well, so that's good. So thank you, and we're moving forward here. My goodness gracious, a potential food crisis in the Philippines. What does the Watchtower say about it? Get help from the outside. Go to the government. They'll help you. Come on. This is absolutely unbelievable. Well, you just heard Gilbert Gonzalez. And not only did he send me something, but my beautiful wife, Susan. This is like a clearinghouse here. I get news all week long. People send me things for my JW World News broadcast. And I want to thank all the people that send me information, because I can look at it and dissect it and see what we're going to run with. But I'm going to run with the story here that a number of people have sent me, and it's concerning the OSCE 2022 meeting. They say, well, wait a minute. What is the OSCE? What is that? Well, you guys have probably heard of it, but I'll give you the definition. I'll let you know what it is. It's the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. So the acronym OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Now, this is the world's largest regional security-oriented intergovernmental organization with observer status at the United Nations. Friends, just put it lightly, it's like a wing of the United Nations. In essence, it's a small United Nations. But, they have their meetings, I guess, once a year. They have a big conference. And who do you think always shows up for the conference? You guessed it, the Watchtower. They're always in attendance at the OSCE. I mean, this is like meddling in politics. It's unbelievable. But, this year, in fact, just a few days ago, Geoffery Jackson was there. And he entered the hall and he left pretty quickly. Well, why did Geoffery Jackson leave? That's what got my attention. And I want to thank Philip and I want to thank my wife, Susan, for sending me this. So let me just kind of bring you up to speed. Then I'm going to play a clip. You're going to hear it on YouTube. And you'll hear it if you're on our radio network. You'll see it if you're on YouTube and Facebook and some of our platforms. But let me just try to break this down so you guys can kind of get the understanding of what's happening here. Well, just a few days ago, I believe it was on the 4th of October, there's an ex-witness, and he's from Kazakhstan. I believe I'm saying that right. But his name is Ergali, and he actually is a former Jehovah's Witness. And he has been shunned, and he doesn't feel too good about it. And so anyways, he filed 4 lawsuits. There were 4 lawsuits filed in Kazakhstan and against the Watchtower for their shunning practices. And he won one of the lawsuits. There were 4 lawsuits won, and he was one of them. Ergali, his name is. So the Watchtower was on the hook to pay him $5,000 because he won. And the other plaintiffs as well were to get $5,000. Do you think the Watchtower paid? Do you think the Watchtower came forth, this multi-billion-dollar organization? Do you think they came forth and played Ergali the money that he won in court? No, they still haven't paid. So Ergali wanted to go to this meeting. He wanted to go to the OSCE meeting, and he wanted to talk about how cruel the Watchtower is. He wanted to talk about their child molestation problems. So he couldn't get the money. He tried hard. He was hoping the Watchtower could have paid for the lawsuit, which they didn't. But anyways, Ergali, in fact, I have to tell you, I want to thank Barbara Anderson. If she's listening in here tonight, thank you, Barbara Anderson. I know that she helped Ergali, her and Joe, her husband, they helped Ergali to get to Poland. That's where this meeting was this year of the OSCE. So Ergali got to Poland, and he was told that he'd be able to speak, but very close to him speaking, the time for him to speak, they said, well, we're so busy here, and there's so many people, there's so many things we have to discuss, we might not have time for you. So that would discourage you, right? You practice and you get there and you spend all this money, and people gave you money and got you there, and now this conference is saying that we might not have the time for you to speak up. This would be troubling, right? I'd be troubled by that. But Ergali hung in there, and they did have the time. They did allow Ergali to speak for only 3 minutes, but he was able to speak and talk about how evil the Watchtower is and how they deal with child molestation. So I'm going to do this. I am going to put this up here so you can hear it. You can see it if you're on YouTube. Let me just get in here and get this settled so we can see what's happening here. Let me just see what this is. Why are we not able to share settings? Hold on 1 second. I'm just trying to share settings here, which I'm having a hard time doing. Why can't we share the settings? Present. They just changed things here on me. Well, why are they doing this? Well, I mean, you guys, you know what happens? Do you ever get your email changed and your platforms are changed, and you say, come on, what is happening here? Why can't we get on here? So anyways, let me just tell you what Ergali was speaking about here. This irritates me to the highest order. I hate it when some of these platforms you're on, they automatically change things when you want to put something up. I just want to share a screen. Okay, well, let's do this. Okay, I got it. All right, so let's do that. Well, I'm not going to complain too much. It's a good platform. So let's just see what we can do here to bring Ergali up. Ergali, his name is. And let's see if we can't get him up here. And I want you to hear him on what he had to say. Now, there's a translator translating for him, but let's see if we can't get you to hear this. So you'll hear it if you're on. You'll hear it all over all of our platforms. So don't worry. So let's share it right now. Let's bring this up, and see what's going on here. Let's bring it up further, and I'm going to play it so you guys can hear it. All right, let's do it.
Religious organizations using the support of the secular. Well, I was giving a situation of two young people in Almaty. Recently, my organization went to the Jehovah's Witnesses in Taras. There was a parishioner who was a boy who was victim of sexual abuse by an adult minister. And actually, it turned out that 4 more children suffered. But currently, they cannot leave the organization. So, dear participants, I have to state that there is a practice of child abuse among Jehovah's Witnesses, which is a grave sin. And the worst thing is that in order to preserve the image of this community, the elders forbid the victims and their parents to talk about these incidents. So actually, there are many cases ideologically motivated to hide these despicable practices. But we are not share the positive emotions of those who are happy that some organizations are deemed extremist or undesirable in Russia. No, we believe that everyone has the right to their belief, but we're talking about some extremes, some extreme religious practices that lead to grave consequences. And also, the right of free speech is also being violated. For those reasons, there is lack of tolerance of some of the members of the society against religious organizations. But this might be a way to discriminate many organizations. At the end of my speech, I draw the attention of the OSCE administration to exclude the use of unbiblical and anti-human internal punitive body, the legal committee. And I recommend the government of Kazakhstan to develop effective measures to provide social and legal support of those citizens who are affected by inhuman activities of Jehovah's Witnesses. Thank you.
All right, we'll stop it right there. So you get the gist of what Igali was talking about. He was actually, really letting the world know, letting the OSCE know, this conference, and how evil the Watchtower is, and they are extremists. And he was even mentioning how Russia considers them to be extremists. And I mention here all the time, they are extremists. They are an extreme religion. They really have to be looked into by the world governments. These people, the Watchtower, that is getting away with murder. So I want to bring that up. But, the other fascinating thing that came to grips here is, who do you think was at that OSCE meeting? Was, I told you, Geoffery Jackson. He was there, and he attended that conference. And about 5 minutes before his speech, he appeared, and Geoffery Jackson came into the room. And then when Igali gave this speech and talked about the witnesses and how they're hiding, child molesters, Geoffery Jackson got up and left. So there you have it. What is the Watchtower doing there in the first place? They condemn the United Nations, as we've talked about before, thousands of times, 4,000, I believe it was 655 times in their publications. They always railed or talked abusively about the United Nations because of their involvement in politics and in the world agenda as it is. But nonetheless, who's at this OSCE meeting? Geoffery Jackson. Friends, this is a wing of the United Nations. So I'm in the camp that says that they're still involved with the United Nations. And yet, do the witnesses know all this? If you ask a witness about this, absolutely not. They have no clue to what's going on. Well, I want to bring that to your attention tonight. And I want to thank Igali I really, really do. His efforts are not going unnoticed. And there's many in Europe right now that have heard that, even though it's only 3 minutes he had to speak. Imagine that. Okay, Gally, you can speak 3 minutes. And he did it, and he got the message out. He got the message out, what's going on. And, this is happening more and more all around the world. We're not making this stuff up. This is happening all over the world. More world leaders, countries are now understanding how bad, how evil the Watchtower is. And, I really hope that something can come about because of all of this. If you hear things once, you might not pay attention to it too much. If you hear it twice, not that much. The more you hear it, the more you hear how evil, how corrupt the Watchtower is. These countries, they've got to have a listening ear. They've got to open their ears. Well, anyways, thank you, Gali, for bringing that to our attention. Yeah, so I'll tell you what, it just amazes me. I sit here sometimes in a total feeling of disbelief. I cannot believe what this organization gets away with, and all the people that are coming out and exposing it. Friends, you look at, just sit back, just take a second, just relax. Just relax. Let's take a couple of deep breaths. So sometimes I have to do that, but take a couple of deep breaths and just ponder over these things. Is this God's channel of truth? Is this his true organization? The answer is no. The answer is no.
Hey, Rick?
Yes.
I was thinking, if you or I or the average brother or sister would attend that meeting, you'd be disfellowshipped so fast. So why isn't Geoffery Jackson up for disfellowshipping? He attended. It's a worldly organization, part of the United Nations. That's the wild beast, as far as witnesses are concerned. So why doesn't he get the same treatment a rank and file witness would?
Well, Susan, let me read you, and for the sake of the audience here, let me just read to you what the OSCE is by definition. It's a forum for political dialogue on a wide range of security issues and a platform for joint action to improve the lives of individuals and communities. The organization uses a comprehensive approach to security that encompasses the political, military, economic, and environmental and human dimensions. Through this approach and with its inclusive membership, the OSCE helps bridge differences and build trust between states by cooperating on conflict prevention, crisis management, and post-conflict rehabilitation. All right, there's a lot there, but there's a mouthful there. But let me just read you a couple of thoughts here that got my attention. So this is an organization or a platform that is trying to improve the lives of individuals and communities. Well, throw the Watchtower out of that. They're not trying to improve anybody's lives. And then it says this OSCE, this is the clincher. The OSCE, this organization uses comprehensive approach to security that encompasses the political, military, economic, and environmental and human dimensions. Stop right there. I have a bone to pick with that sentence. If the OSCE encompasses political, military, isn't this something that the Watchtower was supposed to be neutral on? That they didn't want people to be involved politically or militarily. And now they're involved with this. They got Geoffery Jackson at the OSCE. And this is something the Watchtower does on a regular basis. Friends, wake up, smell the coffee. Come on. I mean, come on, come out of your fog. If you're a witness listening in tonight, I love you dearly. I do. And all of our listeners do as well. But you got to wake up and smell the coffee. You got to say, come on. How can you condemn all of these organizations when you're part of it, just like the United Nations? Oh, I'll tell you what, the more we talk here, the more annoying it gets, doesn't it? I mean, really. I mean, I don't want to come on here every Saturday night and sound like, geez, I'm down from this. No, I'm up from all of this. I am up from all of this because I believe that we are looking at the unraveling of an organization that was so encouraging to so many people. Now we're finding out that they're not. We're finding out they're frauds. They are nothing but frauds. And then when I got this information from Atlantis, we have an insider. Atlantis, I don't know where he is in the Watchtower. I don't know what position he holds, but he sends me information every week that comes out, especially these announcements that are read to the congregation. You guys remember when you were a witness, remember the announcements and reminders, and they'd read it during the service meeting. Brothers and sisters, we have some announcements and reminders. Well, he has privy to this before the congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses even get it. We get it here at the Six Screens, and I thank Atlantis for it. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to read your letter here tonight. This is what was sent this week, just on October, what was it, 7th that I got this? October 8th, was it maybe? Hold on one second. Let me just get in here and see the date on the letter. October 4th, I'm sorry. So that's pretty recent, right? October 4th. Now, let me read you something here. Now, I want you to listen closely. Just sit back. I'm going to read this to you. Just sit back and relax. I'm going to read you something here that is going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. You're really going to say, what? So let me tell you, we know the Jehovah's Witnesses are involved in covering up child abuse. We all know that the world knows it. No, not just us ex-witnesses, but the world knows it. All of these different programs on the Vice Network, the Oxygen Network, everybody knows, even on NBC. Everybody knows the Jehovah's Witnesses are covering up child molestation. Okay, so let's take a look at Illinois. This letter on October 4th is addressed for the elders in Illinois. Well, if you don't know where Illinois is, if you're listening in from around the world somewhere, it's a state in the United States. It's in the Midwest. And so anyways, let me read you the letter. And I think you guys are really going to just be, what? So let me read you the letter. Okay, for elders in Illinois, required mandatory reporter training. Illinois law requires ministers, elders, to attend state-provided training on reporting child abuse. The training is available online or in person. The Illinois Department of Children and Family Services and other educational services providers approved by the department provide the training. Well, stop right there for a second. You say, well, what is this training? What is this all about? Well, if you are a minister or even a policeman, it lists numerous doctors, nurses, teachers, athletic directors. I mean, there's a litany of individuals who have to go through this training, including witnesses at this point, Jehovah's Witness elders. They have to go through training to know about sexual child abuse. Friends, the Watchtower does not provide any training at all for Jehovah's Witness elders. They have no clue to how to deal with this. So the Department it's the Department of Children and Family Services in Illinois, they want the Jehovah's Witness elders to attend. And I think this is because of something that took place in Crystal Lake, Illinois, earlier this year, back in the spring. Remember those two elders, Collins and Pendava? They were accused of hiding child molesters. They were given a light sentence, but nonetheless, it got attention out there in Illinois as well as around the world. So I think this training is in view of what they did. They were covering up child molestation. Now, they're saying here that this training, I'm going back to the letter here from the Watchtower. They're saying the training is to be repeated every 3 years. It consists of pre-training assessment to determine the reporter's pre-training knowledge, followed by 60 to 90 minutes of self-paced interactive training and the post-training assessment. I know there's a lot of worded there, but it's just saying that, you know, they got to go through this. They got to follow a procedure here. They got to spend an hour and a half on interactive training. And at the conclusion of the training, and if the reporter who is listening in totally understands it and passed the test, he is given a certificate of completion that must be retained until completion of the next mandatory training. Okay, so an elder, let's just go with this. So you get an elder in Illinois. He takes the training online. It's going to take him a couple hours to do it. He's going to get a certificate that he passed. Now, every 3 years, he's going to have to come back in and take the training again. Now, in view of the legal requirements, this is right from the Watchtower letter. It says, in view of the legal requirements, we encourage congregation elders to take the online training program at their earliest convenience. You may take the course online, or you can get it, you know, through a web browser. I mean, it gets into how you can do it. We don't have to tell you about that. But anyways, then at the end of you taking the course, there's probably questions you would have, is what the Watchtower is saying. So they sent along some questions you might have had in another letter. Now, this is where it gets really hairy. This is where, I'll tell you what, this is where the elders should get off the train at the next depot, really, because this is too much. So now we have, after the Watchtower telling the elders in Illinois that they have to go to this class to be certified, now the Watchtower is going to answer some questions. So here's a question. The introduction to the online course the introduction to the online course prompts me for personal information such as my name, where I live, my email address, and etc. Would this result in providing the state of Illinois with a list of all congregation elders and some form of contact for them? So these are questions the Watchtower is thinking the elders might have. So the question is, they want all this personal information. Should the elder give the state of Illinois all of this personal information? Would this result in the state of Illinois having a list of all the congregations, of all the elders in the congregation they're in? And would they be able to contact them? So that's a question that elders are asking, according to the Watchtower. And the answer from the Watchtower is no. Now listen to this. No, an elder need not say he is one of Jehovah's Witnesses or identify his congregation. Oh, okay. So here I am, an elder. I'm giving all my time to the organization, giving them money, shepherding calls. I'm conducting judicial committee hearings, but they don't want me to know, they don't want the state of Illinois to know that I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and certainly don't identify the congregation that you're coming from. So that's it. I mean, that's what they say. Now, there's another question. Does that disturb you that the Watchtower is telling the elders not to say they're one of Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, it disturbs me. I mean, it should disturb anybody. It looks like a cover-up, right? Now, the second question. This course, the Watchtower is writing these questions, right, for elders to answer. It says, this course prompts me to identify myself as an employee of a certain agency or organization. How should I respond to this without giving the wrong impression about being employed clergy of Watchtower or Jehovah's Witnesses? So that's a valid question that they want to know. In other words, if you're an elder, well, who is your employee? What's the agency or the organization that you're connected with? I mean, that's a pretty simple question. So the Watchtower comes back, and this is their answer. We recommend that you identify yourself as a religious volunteer and reply none to the question about an employer. So, don't say that the organization that you're kind of working for is the Watchtower or Jehovah's Witnesses. Just tell them that you're a religious volunteer and reply none to the question of being an employee. Well, I'm telling you that the state of Illinois has a right to know. Well, who are you? So you're an elder of who? Well, I'm a volunteer. They should have a right to know who you're a volunteer for.
In that case, they're not a minister, so they're not required to report, because nurses, doctors, teachers would be encouraged to report if they had a student with this abuse issue.
Oh, you're breaking up. You're breaking up.
They're not a minister.
You're breaking up on us, Pixie. I'm not sure why, but you're not. You're breaking up on us. Check your mic. So, anyways, I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. The Watchtower doesn't want the elders connected to the organization. They just want the elders to say they're a religious volunteer. All right, let's go to the next question. All right. Now, this one really got me thinking. Now, you guys, I hope you're listening closely here. This should really be rubbing you the wrong way. You should really be kind of itching in your seat right now, because the Watchtower is deceitful. It's fraudulent. Now, listen to this. This is the question that the Watchtower is kind of suggesting the elders ask. Should I send a copy of my certificate of completion to the branch office for its records, since the course directs me to give a witness confirmation? I'm sorry, not a witness, but since the course directs me to give a written confirmation of completing the course to their supervising agency or employer. All right, so the state of Illinois, just to break this down, you take the course, you get certified. You get certified in being a mandatory reporter of child abuse in the state of Illinois. Now, they're asking you to send your certificate of completion to the authority above you. Who are you working for? What is the agency you're connected with? So they're asking you to do this. Now, listen what the Watchtower says to the elders. No, don't send that form in to us, since elders are volunteers of their local congregation and non-employees of any corporation used by Jehovah's Witnesses. Please keep your own record and comply with retaking the course every 3 years. Isn't that disgusting? Is it really? The Watchtower is disowning the elders. The Watchtower is throwing the elders under the bus. They think about it. They don't want to be held legally accountable for anything. The society is putting the blame on the elders and not on themselves. So, I'm saying here that if you're an elder, I would really think seriously about stepping down. Discuss this with your wife. Your future could be in jeopardy. Your home, your property. You could even get prison sentence for this. Any person. Now, I went into the criminal code. I went into the criminal code of Illinois. I wanted to see what would happen if a person did not follow the instructions that were given in this certificate of child abuse mandatory reporting. Is a criminal code. If you don't follow the department that supervises all of this concerning child abuse in Illinois, They're saying here that it's a criminal offense. Criminal Code 2012. It says that it's a class 4. It could be subject to a class 4 felony. You could be sent to prison. Now, if you're an elder listening in, do you want to go with an organization that you work so hard for, you spent so much time for, putting all of your efforts, time, money, resources, everything into, and they're just considering you a volunteer? And yet you could be subject to a criminal code. You could be put in prison. You could lose your family. You could lose your house, your property, everything you ever worked for. This is chilling. This is very, very chilling. And if you're an elder listening into this program tonight, I say, quit right now. Step down. Go to the Watchtower. Say, that's it. I've had enough. You don't have to tell them why, but just say you're stepping down. Just say you're stepping down. And they don't want you to send that certificate of compliance to the branch office. Why don't they want you to do that? They're throwing you guys under the bus. They're throwing the elders under the bus. And really, I don't see at what point a person would want to be an elder. The current elders will have this collateral damage when anything legal comes up. You guys are going to be on the hook. The Watchtower is going to disconnect from you. Really, I have to tell you, this really is getting a lot of attention. This I think could be the catalyst. This could be the reason why many elders will step down. They're not going to go along with this. I mean, elders, for the most part, I mean, there are some dummy elders, I know, but there's a lot of sharp elders too. And a sharp elder is not going to go along with this, I hope. See, the Watchtower is setting up what they call plausible deniability. Do you know what plausible deniability is? Well, plausible deniability is the ability of people, typically senior officials in a formal or informal chain of command, to deny knowledge of or responsibility for any damnable actions committed by members in their organization's hierarchy. Friends, the Jehovah's Witness organization is hierarchical. It's a hierarchy. It's a command from the top down. That's what a hierarchy is. And the Jehovah's Witnesses are going to leave the elders dangling. They don't want to hear a thing. They're going to set up this plausible deniability. Well, we didn't know that. Now, if they had nothing to hide, just think one second. If the Watchtower had nothing to hide, then would they really be putting their name out there? They always hide when they need to. The Jehovah's Witnesses are hiding right now. If they had nothing to hide, they'd put the name out there. Well, this is what we're doing. We're cooperating with the state of Illinois. They're not doing that. Go ahead, sister.
Okay, so this is Apostle Babe Linda James.
Yeah.
Another thing about that, what you're reading is when they do take this course, they have to confirm that they understood what they've been taught. So they can't play like, I didn't know, because that's what they've done a lot in court, They'll report to the wrong place. They'll send things into the wrong location, like they don't know where to send stuff. And another thing is, all of this is going on without the rank and file knowing. So this is kind of behind the scenes kind of things. It goes, well, you're going to go on further, so I'll just.
Well, no,
no,
Linda, I'm glad you brought that up. That this is something that they have to do. That they have to take the course if they're Jehovah's Witness elder, and they also have to get certification of it, and they have to acknowledge in the certification that they've been trained and they know what the rules are. Thank you for bringing that up.
Hey, Rick.
Sure.
Yes.
It's Chad from Illinois, and I'm just kind of looking over the manual that you're talking about here because I'm certified. I had to go through this to be classified as a mandated reporter. And as I'm looking over my handbook that they gave me that was emailed to me or whatever, it's available freely at the Department of Children and Family Services website for Illinois. The way, I've read this whole thing today, getting ready for tonight's program, and the way I'm reading it is they have put the Watchtower in a real pickle, because if the Watchtower is made aware of a incident of CSA by an elder, and that elder reports it to the Watchtower, but not to the Department of Children and Family Services in Illinois, then automatically they've already committed a misdemeanor. If they report it to the legal department and the legal department doesn't immediately contact the state of Illinois, then they've committed another crime, because now they've implicated the Watchtower organization. I mean, this is as messed up as this is. As I'm reading this, it's almost like they've got it set up so the Watchtower, if they don't follow the rules, it's going to be big trouble for them no matter what.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. At the end
Can you still hear me?
I can hear you, Apostle Babe. Yep.
Okay, so I'm under the impression they're being treated as independent contractors. The headquarters is saying, oh, don't bother sending us a certificate that you finished this. Keep it with your own records. So I think it's all being set up to affect them individually. Individual volunteers, individually. Watchtower has not, I think they have it all set up to make where Watchtower won't be held accountable.
Well, I got to answer to that. Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, that's what the Watchtower is ultimately trying to do. But what's going on is, they have to report it to the legal department in New York. And with the training, it was stressed to us, because I did everything online, but it was stressed, we do not tell anyone. We make an immediate contact to the Department of Children and Family Services. Within 48 hours, we have to file paperwork, the physical paperwork, with the Department of Children and Family Services, which is our report. If there is more than one witness, one of the witnesses can file the report. However, a copy of the report must be given to any other witnesses. So like if me and you if we were working together on a project and a kid came to us saying that their daddy touched them, I would say,
we're the witnesses report.
Right. Now at this point, we decide who's going to fill out the report. Whoever fills it out, they have to fill out a second copy. Say, I filled it out to send it in. I have to give you your very own copy. On top of that, before that happens, we have to call a phone number. They give us a confirmation number that goes on our report. So we can follow up with the case. If we think there's nothing being done, we have the responsibility to follow up with it. If we don't, we don't follow up with that, and if the ball gets dropped, we have a confirmation number that keeps us in the clear saying, hey, we reported it. Now, if that abuse victim were to go and tell it to someone else and they reported it and it was found out that you and I didn't report it, then we would be in a world of trouble. We would be guilty on the first time it is a Class A misdemeanor. The second time and every subsequent time, it is a Class 4 felony in the state of Illinois that we don't report it. So, I mean, no matter how you look at this, the Watchtower is in a place now where if the elder follows JW protocol and tells legal, well, guess what? Now they have waived the clergy penitent privilege.
That was my question.
Yeah, the clergy penitent privilege is for that one clergy member, and it is for that one penitent person or victim.
Yeah.
Now, as if someone came to me and they told me, hey, daddy's touching me, okay, I'm going to go to the police if it's an absolute emergency, like we know this is going to happen tonight. I'm not going to wait. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to fill out the paperwork. I'm going to do everything I have to protect that child.
Yes.
But the thing is,
but send the kids home with the parents.
Right.
Insane. So the letter Rick has gets to the point where it says that they have to report to legal too. So later on down the line, the question and answer thing, common questions and answers, it says that they still have to do what they've been asked to do all along, which is called legal. And now you're adding in what our responsibility would be in the secular world.
Right.
So
and the thing is, with the fact that they have to report it to legal, they are completely waiving clergy penitent privilege. This means if the Watchtower tells an elder not to report it, and it gets found out anyway, that elder then becomes an eyewitness against the Watchtower in a court case, a criminal court case, for covering up child sex abuse.
My question along that line is the handbook that you have issued by the Child Protective Book.
Yes.
They said, we know that nurses, teachers, ministers are encouraged to protect the safety of the minor and report. But Watchtower has told their people, well, you can't use the label of minister. You now have become a volunteer. Now, any good citizen, even if they were a volunteer in a severe case like that, would want to call the police. But the legality of the handbook, does it specify nurse, teacher, minister? Or does it also say that Joe average citizen can report? Because the Watchtower has thrown the elders under the bus by taking away their title of minister. And that was interesting to me because of this client penitent clergy privilege. That's what I'm interested to know about.
All right, there's two answers to that, Pixie. Number one is that, yes, it does say in big, bold letters, any member of the clergy. In fact, that's at the top, towards the top of page 11, under the section Responsibilities of Mandated Reporters, who are mandated reporters. It just says any member of the clergy.
Does it say volunteer of church? Does it say church volunteer?
Well, here's the thing, and this is where it gets real interesting. Because of the wording, there's another part. Now, here's the thing. Are elders allowed legally to perform wedding ceremonies?
Well, yes, if they've been a justice of the peace and they have put their property up at the courthouse, they can also be justice of the peace and minister.
There's a certain thing you have to do to be, and I have that. Like I can officiate a wedding, a funeral, but there's usually a few elders in the hall that does have that.
Yeah.
But not each and every elder.
Well, see, here's the thing. This is where it would come down to the bylaws. If the elder, the one being responsible, would be the one who is recognized as an elder and allowed by the organization to perform the weddings. Because in Illinois, you are classified as a member of the clergy if you are not a judge or a justice of the peace, but are able to perform wedding ceremonies.
Okay, so let's say it's not Elder Mary and Sam. Let's say that it's Elder Good, and he wants to help this minor in this situation to report it, but he's now been told that he is volunteer.
If he goes through the training, he is automatically registered as a mandated reporter.
Okay.
So here's the thing. once you're registered, once you're a mandated reporter and you're registered as such, if this comes to you, it does, like, you guys could get on right now. You could get yourself certified in Illinois as a mandated reporter. Then, if you ever came to Illinois and someone told you something, whether or not you're in a legal position or not, whether if you're one of these mandated reporters or not, you have the classification of a mandated reporter,
Right.
because you took the classes.
Right.
So
you're
once
qualified.
once you take the class, there's no turning back. You are a mandated reporter.
Right.
Okay, well, that's good. We don't have to know that much, but we got most of it. Yeah, we got most of it. Go ahead. Who's on with it? Go ahead. Yep.
Hi, this is Robin. I'm in California.
Yes, Robin.
And I'm a mandated reporter in connection with my business. And any position where a person works with children in California, whether it's volunteer or not, if you are a mandated reporter, you are responsible and you take on that liability to report any kind of even suspected abuse to the authorities. So it doesn't matter, if you do weddings or whatever it is. If they're mandated reporters, then the elder is taking on the responsibility on himself. Really, it has nothing to do and in the beginning. So, however it goes after that, if the person wants to sue Watchtower or whatever, then they could take it from there. But that elder is responsible for reporting any type of abuse that he suspects. It doesn't even have to be proven. If he suspects it, and then when he gets that certification, he's responsible.
Yes.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Robin, for calling in. We appreciate you coming into the program here tonight, and thank you. So, we're just adding more light to this, and
Nick, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because I'm really confused. I am really confused over this. So what you're saying is, if they suspect child abuse, or someone reports to the elder that my little daughter was raped by this pioneer, and then the elder, he's supposed to go to the Watchtower and report it? I thought he was supposed to go to the police and report it.
To the police.
Do they have to go?
Or to Child Protective Service.
Yeah, well, let me... Go ahead, Susan.
But do they go to the Watchtower and the legal department report? I'm not sure.
Well, let me explain this, okay? So the last question here, that on this the letter to the elders, that this kind of sums it up a lot, that this might give more insight into what's going on here. So the question number 4, does this training program conflict with organizational guidelines on handling instances or allegations of child abuse? The answer...
Yes, that's what I want to know, yeah.
Okay, this is the important part. No. The website acknowledges, this is saying the website from Illinois Department of Child Services, the website acknowledges that legal guidance may be needed. Therefore, in harmony with the direction outlined in the Shepherd Book, Chapter 14, Paragraph 7, please immediately contact the legal department for legal advice when you are in an accusation of child abuse, when you learn about an accusation of child abuse. So that right there is kind of summing the whole thing up. It's not superseding what the Shepherd Book says. The Watchtower still wants these elders to call the Watchtower first, but that is in the website, because I did review the website in Illinois. It does say that if you want legal representation, I guess before you make a claim or before you make an accusation, that's fine, okay. So they're saying that you'll contact the legal department and we'll give you the advice. But in many cases, I mean, is a legal department what are they going to tell you? No, don't report it. I mean, we know that. So this is.
Hello, Rick. Can I step in on this for a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Phil. I'm a former ministerial servant. I'm a former pioneer. I'm a former volunteer firefighter medic in Illinois. I'm no longer in the congregation. I successfully faded when I moved back to Chicago because I was in Central Illinois, but I was a mandated reporter up until 2014. And let me just throw one more thing into the mix that hasn't even been talked about or considered. As a mandated reporter in Chicago, or in Illinois, I should say, I apologize. Sorry, I'm a little nervous here. But as a mandated reporter in Illinois, even if there's suspected or accused spousal abuse, that mandated reporter is required by law to report that. So this can open up a whole big can of worms that would be awesome to take down the organization.
Well, thank you, brother. I'll tell you what, this is a bigger story than we're realizing. This could create unbelievable damage to the Watchtower. And elders who are elders that are reading this are going to say, what? And they're going to discuss it, hopefully, with their wives. And they're going to say, we don't want any part of this. Step down. Unreal. Well, thank you, brother.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
But thank you, Rick. I've been watching you for many years now, and I really appreciate your show and the information that you put out, and people, the creators like Kim and Mikey and whatnot, Lloyd Evans. I've been following all you guys and really helped me wake up. So thank you, and I will mute myself now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming into the Six Screens tonight. Good to hear from you. Don't be a stranger. You come back and see us again. Well, there you go. I mean, look at the Watchtower. They are trying to stop the hemorrhage. They don't know what to do. They're in a pickle. They don't want you as an elder connected with them. And the bottom line is, if you are an elder in a congregation where this takes place and you hear about child abuse, before you contact the Department of Illinois, you contact them, contact the legal department, and they're going to tell you how to handle it. And I mean, we know the history of the Watchtower and handling child molestation. They want to cover it up. So I don't know if this is going to change at all. But the thing is, if you're an elder and you call the Watchtower organization and say, there's a person in my congregation that's being abused sexually, and you don't report it as a mandatory certified reporter, you are going to jail. That's it, period. You're going to jail, and you might lose everything you ever had. So give it some thought. Give it some serious thought. Well, thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the comments.
Rick?
Yes.
Rick, I'm so sorry to interrupt after all you've been through in the last hour, but I just wanted to get back to what you were pointing out so clearly, that the elders are being thrown under the bus. The leaders are distancing and have been distancing themselves from the elders, while the elders are expected to be good company men. They're chosen to be elders because they are foreseen as being good company men, enforcing Watchtower protocol. But when push comes to shove, they stand back and say, we didn't tell them to do that. We didn't tell them to say that. That was their choice. And case in point, there was a video of a poor brother having to suffer through an interrogation, a deposition, and he's sitting at the table so nervous, and they're asking all these questions of why didn't and what's your procedure and this and that, and he's so nervous about, well, we have to destroy our notes and this and that and the other. And the poor thing, if he gets caught, if he gets in trouble, he gets in trouble, not the leaders, not the governing body, not the district or circuit overseers. And the other thing is, it's been said more than once that when the elders go for their little private training with their little shepherding the flock book, they are told things that are not in print in that book, but they are told, do this, this is a procedure, whatever. So the brothers are making all these notes in the margins so that when they follow Watchtower directives and they get in trouble, Watchtower leaders can say, we never said that. We never told them to do that. Thank you, Rick.
Oh, yeah, Maria's so right. You're so right. It's unbelievable.
Hey, Rick.
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, Rick, you know that these governing body members are high-level Shriner Masons. Do you know what Jannah is in Islam? The version of heaven in Islam is the 72 virgins.
I heard about that.
They
Yeah.
also have 300. Yeah, they have 72 perpetual virgins and 300 pearly boys, young boys, and you also get a permanently erect penis. Okay, they're making the Watchtower the Jannah on earth for unscrupulous men that are Shriner Masons that will go into these kingdom halls and take advantage of these innocent people. It's for Shriners and Masons and people in the know. That's what this Freemason construct of a false church is. That's called the Watchtower. You've seen that show Westworld, where it's about like robot people, and they're given these routines, these daily routines to run, but you have clients that come in and they interact with the robots as sex slaves. And that's what it seems to be. This organization is kind of based on a Shriner Mason, Jannah on earth philosophy, that where they deny Jesus Christ, they deny the cross, they deny the Holy Ghost. That's what the Dome of the Rock says. The Dome of the Rock says that God has no son. There is no three. Okay? They deny Christ. They deny the Holy Ghost. They deny the cross, because Freemasonry is Shriner Islam. It's a white version of Islam that they're fooling their congregation with. They go door to door selling this stuff, and that opens you up. When you deny Christ publicly, it curses you. And that's what this organization is.
Well, I'm glad you always speak up. Now, you probably, I mean, I can come to grips with some of the things you're saying. A lot of our audience, they might say, man, who's this guy? That sounds like strange stuff. But I mean, you've done your homework, and I hope people will research some of this stuff. And some of the things you say, I can see it coming to fruition. Well, thank you for calling in, brother.
Thanks, Rick. God bless.
All righty. Well, there you go. My goodness, we get a lot of people.
Rick?
Yes.
This is Carrie in the suite.
Yes, Carrie.
I went to our presiding overseer and I told him about the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the child abuse, and all of that. And the elder said to me, or the PO said to me, that I could not report it to the police because it would bring reproach on Jehovah's name. So, of course, as a witness that believed in all of what they said, I chose not to call the police, and I left it in their hands. But it didn't work out too well. But that's just my little comment.
Well, Carrie, it's always good to hear from you. I mean, you do believe the Watchtower is a corrupt organization, and I know you're in here.
Yes, I do.
And I know you're in here every Saturday.
I do now.
Oh, yeah.
I do now. I mean, it took me, 9 years of deprogramming way back when. And you know what? But with many of us XJWs, we still have triggers, and there are still things that I think bother many of us when we see things or hear things or whatever. It doesn't 100% go away. That's why we're still doing what we're doing. I mean, I've been doing this for so many years. It's not funny. So, but I think it's mostly to build one another up, and hopefully a Jehovah's Witness will be listening, and they can hear what's really, really going on, because they are blinded. organization does not tell them a lot of stuff, but they kind of blackmail them in a way, I would say, tie their hands. But anyways, I'm out, been out, and happy to be out.
Well, good for you, Carrie. Now, you mentioned something there just a couple of seconds ago that struck my fancy. You've been out for a while. I've been out for a while.
Yes.
And then I wonder what really is the catalyst here? What is this? I mean, I suppose by definition we could call it an obsession. Some people say I'm obsessed with this, but what is the catalyst? What is the reason why many of us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses can't get enough of what's going on in the organization? Do you have any feelings on that, Carrie?
Well, I think when I started questioning, I was already kind of out, but out by force, we'll put it that way. And I found this XJW chat room on AOL. Geez, way back in, oh gosh, I don't know, in the 90s. And I hung out with these people. They helped me a lot. And that's when I met Doc Bob. I met Brenda Lee, the one that wrote the book Out of the Cocoon. I met a lot of wonderful people, Silent Lambs, and a whole bunch of great people. And that's where my deprogramming came in. I had met a lot of wonderful Christian people in there that took a fancy to Jehovah's Witnesses and and people who were questioning. But as far as that, I spent maybe 9, 10 or better years in that, and I read a lot online, all the stories and everything. In that, and I read a lot online, all the stories and everything. Well,
I think you get.
I don't know why. I'm just hearing myself talk here.
All right, you got YouTube on? Or you got?
No. I got I'm on a regular computer. I have my sound completely off.
All right.
Well, that's crazy. Well, but anyway, so the long and short of it is, I took a little vacation from all of that after, and then my daughter found you guys. In the world.
All right, we got some sound issues here, Carrie. So, but thank you for coming in. Go ahead and hang up if you would. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So that's I don't know why that's echoing. All right. Well, there might be somebody's on with a cell phone here. I'm not sure. Let's see what's going on here. Let me just see what we got. Oh, there's always something that happens here, right? When you're doing something live. Let me just see if we can.
You got it.
All right. What we have is when you guys are coming in and you open up your phone lines, if you have YouTube on, or the Six Screens video suite or Facebook, you can only, don't have that because it's going to interfere. So make sure you shut that off when you come on. But anyways, we got a great program going on here tonight on JW World News. And that's the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. We talk about it every Saturday night. But anyways, we're not done yet. We got a great segment coming up here next. It's all about shunning in the Watchtower. And you don't want to leave us for this. This is going to be a great program. We have a professor coming in from New York State University, and we're going to be dealing with the shunning issues that take place in the Watchtower. So it's a special Six Screens presentation shunning under the microscope. That's what we're calling it. And we have a man named David. He'll be coming on very shortly with us, and he'll be explaining to us how he's really fighting hard. He has witness relatives, and he's fighting hard to get the government's attention on what goes on behind the curtains of the Watchtower concerning shunning. So he's coming on here very shortly. But in the meantime, we've got about 5 minutes or so. If you'd like to speak up and talk to us here tonight, some of the news stories, we have more to talk about, but I'm not going to go into it in view of our special program coming up here in just a few minutes. But if you got something it's on your mind, something you heard here tonight, well, go ahead, speak up. Let us know what you think. You're on 6 Screens. Go ahead. All right. Well, anyways, folks, I have to tell you what, I mean, I've been really pleased to see so many new people coming in here to the 6 Screens. It's just amazing to me. I mean, we've been doing this program now, like I say, for 16 years. We never missed a Saturday night, and that's that is for sure. And we have Sunday programs as well, but we only miss one Sunday program in 16 years. But you say, well, how do you do this, Rick? Why do you do it? And, sometimes I ask myself that as well. But, I get a lot of satisfaction in doing a program like this. I would have loved to have a program like this when I was leaving the Watchtower. You feel troubled. You don't know what to do. You don't know who to turn to. You have an organization that disfellowshipped you. They don't want anything to do with you. So, by doing this program, it's opened up a format, it's opened up a platform where people can come in real time and talk to people. And that's how it's been for 16 years. So that's why I'm so glad it's working. Many people, they rely on coming on here every Saturday night and talking to people. Sometimes people don't speak up. I understand that. But just by hearing some of the witnesses, ex-witnesses worldwide, and talking about their trek in the Watchtower, it makes them feel comfortable. So if you're one of those people and you haven't called in, that's okay. You just sit back, relax, and listen, and you can see how evil the Watchtower is. If you'd like to speak up, we're going to go to David here very shortly. If you'd like to speak up, go ahead, say something. Lots of people.
That was a great show.
Hey, Brett.
Yeah, Susan.
We had, if it's okay, we were talking with each other about mentioning why we have programs like Jimmy Bell and so forth, because some people don't really understand, or they're puzzled over why we would have such a program as that.
Right. Well, Jimmy Bell's program, of course, and even Reese's programs, Conspiracy, and more Jimmy Bell's program. And I wanted to bring up here tonight, some people, Jimmy Bell's program is a wonderful program. He'll be on again, and he'll be on next week, I believe. So Jimmy Bell's program is a great program. And what I feel is the Watchtower has deeper roots than most of us are willing to admit. These guys are involved, as Jimmy Bell comes on and says, that they're involved in the coming New World Order. And, there's people listening to this program tonight. Oh, Rick, come on now, take your tinfoil hat off and all of this. But you stop and think about it. You just stop and think about it. How does the Watchtower organization get people to do the things they do, to act the way they do, shun relatives, friends, loved ones, family members? How do they do that? Can you just possibly think that it's some type of mind control? Is it possible you could think that the government has experimented with mind control? Is it possible to think the government has worked with the Watchtower to see how they can control people's minds without them being...
Hey, Rick, you got a copy there?
What's that?
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Ben here. Sorry, the dog, he got scared.
Hey, Rick, it's Ben here up in northern British Columbia, Canada. Me and my wife just thought we'd call in on the program if you got a spot for me here.
Well, go ahead, Ben. We got about 5 minutes. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I'm enjoying your program. I know you've been talking all about this letter, and it's quite a crazy letter, that's for sure. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that Glockentine video on the money. You know, don't you think it's kind of strange that the earliest statistic he could come up with was 2018? I'd just like to talk about that a little bit and see, what you guys think. And, Jehovah's Witnesses must be wondering, like, where's our money going?
Well, bring it up to speed here. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the video that Glockentine made there just recently on JW.org about the finances.
Yeah.
And he talked all about the money problems, and they don't solicit for funds and on and on. But the earliest statistic he could come up with was from 2018. And I know a lot of people have been doing videos and stuff like that about it, but it's kind of odd that that's the earliest statistic he could come up with about money.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was saying that, if you donate money, now he was official to the Watchtower, so just so people understand what you're talking about, he was on jw.org.
Yeah.
And it was a morning
It
was a morning worship session that he was telling the Bethelites and people listening in on morning worship that, if you contribute money to the Watchtower, that would make you a close friend with Jesus and Jehovah.
Yeah, you'd be Jehovah's friend. That's right.
Yeah.
I've already got friends in heaven. I don't need to give any money out.
Yeah.
Doesn't work like that.
So that
yeah,
Ben,
but I just
go ahead, Ben.
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I just thought it was strange. I thought it was strange that that's the earliest statistic he could come up with. It's just like I don't know if we needed to talk about that more because it's kind of odd. Like, it's 2022. There's a lot of times gone on. Like, where's all this money been going? You would think that most Jehovah's Witnesses would be thinking, like, where has our money been going the last few years? And they're just asking for more and more money. This is a big wake-up call for me. When I became a Jehovah's Witness serious, like, it was never about money, but now it's money, 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 and this is an issue. I think they're hurting for money, and I hope the people are waking up to that one.
Well,
they
Ben,
got billions to the B. They got billions to the B, not millions, billions.
Yeah, billions is right. But Ben, anyways, you're right on track here, and we did talk about this last week. We did talk about this last week extensively. Yeah. But it's something that, more and more people are waking up, Ben. I mean, you and your wife, how long you been out now?
Well, we're going on 4 years now. We're accused of apostasy, we're just asking too many questions. So yeah, we're on our own now. We're making it do, we're getting there. We're working through things, but it's a terrible situation, this Jehovah's Witnesses. I was a faithful servant for many years, 30 years. I'm 51 now. I was born and raised Jehovah's Witness and baptized for 30 years. And I gave everything I had to that organization. But in the last few years, it became so haywire, you can't help but ask questions.
Well,
and as soon as you start asking questions, you're out the door. That's the problem. I said, and the Jehovah's, we live in a really small town up here in British Columbia. And I've had some interactions with the Jehovah's Witnesses here. I don't see them out in the carts anymore. They're just disappeared, because I went out with my signs, the whole works. But I tried politely to talk to them at first, but they just wouldn't talk. They wouldn't talk. And now when we went out with our signs, they just scurry off.
Well, Ben, I have to say that, you're right there. You can question the Jehovah's Witnesses, but don't question their answers. I'm so glad that you're wiggling your way loose. And this is wonderful that you're doing that. Geez, this makes my heart glad that I see so many people packing their bags and leaving. Good for you, Ben.
Well, I'll tell you this, like up here in northern Canada, it's really haywire. And, I've been in congregations all across Canada, and, especially in the last few years, it's bizarre. And, we're talking about what they're putting these elders through. I remember when I was a Jehovah's Witness 4 years ago, these elders were run ragged at the point, and they were dragging me out there, checking people out. Like, they were was just totally bizarre what was going on. So I can just imagine what they're under now. Like there must be disfellowshipping announcements every week.
Oh, no, and you're
From what I'm
absolutely
hearing,
right. No, apostasy is the biggest thing right now. I mean, people are being disfellowshipped on a weekly
Yeah.
basis, like you say. People are leaving the Watchtower, Ben. Well, I'm glad you chimed in here with us tonight. And don't you be a stranger. Now you
Well,
can, yeah.
we won't. We appreciate the show. We listen to the show, and I'm just letting everybody know we appreciate everybody else too. It's a tough road to go. You just got to keep working at it. I mean, they've done a real mind fuck on most of us. Sorry to use the language, but that's what they've done to us.
Oh, yeah.
And it's difficult to break free. And I appreciate you folks talking about this stuff because we need to get it out as people, you know, like we all want to move on at some point, but you know, we've only been out, like I said, close to 4 years now. And I think about Jehovah's Witnesses every day. I mean, how can you not? I was raised that way.
Well,
so, you know, and I worry about what's going on in there. You know, I have 2 kids. I haven't talked to my kids in 4 years. My wife hasn't talked to her parents in 4 years. You know, we're completely cut off. For what? Just because we don't want to be Jehovah's Witnesses anymore, you know? And I was a good Jehovah's Witness. I was trying.
Oh, I can tell. I can tell you were a good guy. I can tell you tried so hard. And, you know, now your family's not even talking to you. But you want to stay tuned to the next segment here because we're going to be talking about that shunning. Well, Ben, thank you for calling in. I want you to call in when we have more time. When we have more time, I want you to come back and tell us a little more. Thank you, Ben, and thank your wife, too, for listening in. Appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet, Rick. Bye.
All right. Good night, Ben. Boy, I'll tell you what. See that, friends? We got people listening in all over the place. Up there in the Yukon, I think he said, in the northern British Columbia, somewhere up there. But boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, it's all amazing to me that we are now witnessing the Watchtower falling. Yes, go ahead.
Hey, Rick, sorry to get back on, but I'm going to answer your question when you said, is it possible that the government, is involved in this mind control? And I did a video on my channel, and it says we were lab rats of the New World Order. And what happens is there's a movie documentary called 3 Identical Strangers, where the government separated 3 triplets at birth, knowingly separated them, and they wanted to put them with 3 completely different families. And when they would go and check up on the children, they were checking up on them to check on their behavior, are they still going to be identical even though they're separated? But the demonic, what kind of demonic person would separate triplets at birth? Well, guess who? It was the federal government doing it. And so in my video, I says we were lab rats. It felt like a lab rat, like if we were part of an experiment.
Well,
so yeah, I really do believe that we Jehovah's Witnesses were experimented on.
Well, we're going to hear
there's some indication of that, and there was a senator named Frank Church. So you might want to key in the Church Committee. And the man's name was Frank Church. He was a senator or congressman.
Well, there's more to it than we all think, and we're going to talk about this more because I'm really thinking now that we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, there's something going on in this organization that's abnormal. There's something that just doesn't happen through normal sequences in life. Something's going on in this Watchtower that the Watchtower has such control over people. We're going to talk more about that. I wish we had more time to talk about it tonight. But anyways, friends, we're going to move on here. We've got Dave. He's a New York University professor. I do believe he's on the phone with us now. We're going to be talking about shunning under the microscope. And we all know what shunning is. The rest of the world probably doesn't really identify with it as much as we as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses do. And we're shunned big time. And it's very, very troubling for so many people. People commit suicide over it. So we have a man that has been on the program a couple of times. His name is David. He's out of New York. He's a professor, like I say, a university professor, and he's diligently working to expose the evil practices of shunning in the Watchtower. Well, he got a hold of me today, and he wanted to come on and talk about a few things concerning this, and I'm so pleased to have a person that really never was a witness. Now, he does have relatives that are Jehovah's Witnesses, but it's so pleasing to me to have a person that can come on who never was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but be so concerned and so understanding and how hurtful the shunning practices in the Watchtower are. David, are you there with us? Professor David. Hit *6 on your telephone pad. Professor David. And if he doesn't, come on, I can bring him on here myself. Professor, I'm going to hit the button here and bring you on. You should be on with us now, Professor. Can you hear me, Professor David? Well, for some reason, we're having some trouble getting David on. Professor David, are you on there with us? Professor David, are you on there with us?
Yes, I am, Rick. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now, do you have YouTube going in the background or some other platform on?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Rick?
I can hear you, but there's echoing. You've got some other mic open to another platform.
Yes, I have YouTube going on. Let me mute it. How's that, Rick?
Yeah, you gotta mute the YouTube. Yep.
Yeah, I just did. How's that?
That's way better. Yep. All right. So there you are. So you're very concerned on the shunning practices in the Watchtower. What got you on this trail?
Well, first, Rick, let me thank you once again for having me come onto your show. It's really a privilege, and I'm very humbled. You have a lot of wonderful people come on, and I've been listening pretty intently for the last half hour. Very moving. And so, again, for some of your listeners who have not heard about me, I'll just, give a very quick little bio of my background. I am retired professor. I was a professor in economics and management. I'm a freelance writer now, and I do have relatives that are Jehovah's Witnesses. And you probably know who I'm talking about, and your listeners probably have heard them. It's Joe and Fran. They have been on your show many times. And I wrote I did an investigative reporting article on shunning, and I titled it, "Is Shunning the New Old Hate Crime?" And that was really pushed by my brother-in-law, Joe, who asked me to please do something to help out and get this more exposed, and I did. So, and in any event, I wanted to come back onto your show and give you a little update on what's going on.
Well, sounds good to me.
Okay, so here's the latest update. I have a dear friend who I've known for many years, who has become a New York State assemblyman. He's a legislator in New York State. His name is John Sulka. And I met John about 2 weeks ago and had lunch with him. And I shared with John my investigative article and my concerns on the shunning process and the outcomes from that shunning, which your listeners obviously would know as well as you, that obviously there's been homicides, suicides, people having mental breakdowns, PTSD from all this shunning. And he was very interested in what I had to say. He brought it back to Albany. He talked to his chief of staff. They had a meeting, and they brought it to a couple committees. Now, I just heard from him the other day, and he was going to come on tonight, Rick, but he wasn't able to, so he does apologize. But the news that I have right now from the Assembly is that they're staying away from this right now, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're winding down the political year. There's going to be a new political year in 2023. And my friend John Selka, who's the assemblyman of the 121st District in New York State, is going to work with me coming in 2023 and how to bring my concerns to the federal level. So now we're talking about the Department of Justice, and that's where I want to go, Rick. And so he's going to help me with that. And also for your listeners to know, and you as well, we have in our area of New York State a radio talk show that is one of the more popular talk shows throughout the whole state. And it's 100.7 FM. And the Assemblyman, John Selka, and myself are working to get onto that live radio talk show in the next couple weeks, where I will be talking about my investigative reporting and the shunning that's going on with the Jehovah's Witnesses and the heinous crimes, I believe, that are being committed and the suffering that people are going through. So that's the update for you and for your listeners.
Well, that's amazing. Well, I really am pleased, David, that you're taking the effort to do this. This is amazing to me. And boy, to be able to get on the radio program and talk about this, it's certainly making people aware. And then having that legislator, you say assemblyman, but that'd be like a state legislator, to be able to.
Yes, he's a New York State legislator, Rick.
Yeah,
right,
to be able to come on and at least want to work with you on this, that could be good inroads right there. Boy, I appreciate and applaud your efforts, David. Really.
Well, thank you, Rick. My goal would be to have the Department of Justice take a look at their current definition of what a hate crime is. And as you know, I've been on your show now. This is my third time. And I can tell you and your listeners once again, shunning, in my opinion, and with my investigation and what I have come to know and understand, it is certainly a hate crime. And I want to bring that to the attention of the federal level. And thank God I have a friend who's in politics, who has connections, and he's got my back, and we're going to work together on this, and we're going to see where this all goes.
Well, now
I have a question and comment, David. I appreciate what you're striving to do. I've been rolling this around in my head, and I know the First Amendment is important to all of us, and that's one of the reasons that they can have these kangaroo courts. So I thought of this for weeks and weeks, and here is my thought on this. If I had a quack medicine, the AMA would call me and tell me to stop. In the case of a kangaroo court, I'm wondering if someone with legal expertise would realize that their frat would tell these people to stop. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of the legal frat and our legal system, that kangaroo courts should not be allowed. So could you factor that in if you can talk to someone with the legal expertise on that?
Absolutely. I mean, look, my background, I don't have a legal background, but I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Good.
I think once we get going on this, and I have the backing of the assemblyman, who has more of a legal background just because of his nature of being an assemblyman, I think we can address those concerns. And look,
if you can present it to him that way, because what's in the way of this is that we do have a First Amendment, even though these people have been treated wickedly. There was a Supreme Court case of a Greek Orthodox man, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, your church had a right to discipline you. But that's, in my mind, a case with witnesses. It would be great if the legal profession could look at that again, because of what we know with the suicides, the broken families, and everything else. So that's why my line of reasoning is looking at it as, really, you should not be allowed to have a kangaroo court with people that are window washers and not attorneys and not qualified to be judges, because even most attorneys aren't qualified to judge.
I happen to agree with you 100%.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah, look, this is not going to be an easy thing.
No.
You know, I have no, I'm not naive. And I know what, just from the feedback from my friend who's in the assembly, that when he brought it to some of the committees, they kind of pushed back on it. They were kind of, well, geez, you know, First Amendment rights and religion and this and that. And there's a lot of other things going on in the political pot there. But this won't be easy. However, this is how I look. Listen, I was never a Jehovah's Witness. I think Rick mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm a fourth generation.
Well, I like I said, I have family who are Jehovah's Witnesses, and I've never been a Jehovah's Witness, but I have seen the damage that has been caused by shunning.
So
and again, with my investigative reporting, here's my thought on this. That if I'm fortunate enough and blessed enough to get in front of a federal committee to speak, which I will, I have no problem with that. One of my questions is going to be, how can you allow a certain religious organization to have a 501c3 or a tax exemption because of their religious organization, and give them all these perks that a lot of religious organizations get, not just Jehovah's Witnesses, but yet we have this heinous shunning going on that has caused damage all over this country, if not all over the world.
I agree.
And my article talks about that in depth.
I agree with you totally.
So I'm
court
just going to keep pushing this forward.
Call it a kangaroo court and see what the legal eagles say, because that hits them where they can understand,
right.
And they don't want anybody doing what they do without their expertise, and that's righteous and that's correct. So
that's right. Well, I want to thank you for your insights on that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for all you do.
Well, you're more than welcome.
Well, David, that's amazing what you're doing, and obviously you're getting the audience to connect with you. But, you know, this is something, shunning, you mentioned you want to consider it a hate crime. Now, what would you say is the definition of a hate crime?
Well, every state, Rick, has their own hate crime on the books. There's only a couple of states that don't have hate crimes. And then you have the Department of Justice, they have their federal hate crimes. So if you just draw the thread through all of them, basically a hate crime, and this is what most people associate with a hate crime, it's an egregious act, usually of a physical nature, against a certain class of people, i.e. a minority group, a person who's gay, a person who is of a different color, or different religion, et cetera, et cetera. And it's usually a physical confrontation where the person gets physically damaged, hurt, killed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's fine. You know, you want to have that kind of a hate crime. Now, I looked up New York State hate crime, okay? And I don't have it in front of me right now, and I'm sorry, maybe I should have had that out there when I called. But there's some loose language in there that talks about, you know, a hate crime can be considered someone who says something to somebody over a repeated amount of time and period of time that causes a person extreme distress, PTSD, and that harms that person. Well, I don't have to tell you and your audience, as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, that's what shunning does to people. So in the narrative of the New York State hate crime, I find little gaps in there that I think that, wait a second here, why can't we talk about an act of shunning that drives people to commit suicide, to commit suicide. Who's responsible for that? In my article, I had the privilege to talk to, personally interview a number of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who have told me they know people been shunned, went out, killed their families. Well, who's responsible for this? Where do we draw the line back? Where do we take the thread? And in my humble opinion, the thread goes back to the people, to the congregation that did the shunning, that perpetrated this heinous act upon these people to cause them to do what they did. Homicide, suicide, whatever. Lose their jobs, have severe PTSD, become an alcoholic, become a drug addict, anything to dampen to deaden the effects of this fellowship. So, is that, in my opinion, a definition of a hate crime? 100%, absolutely.
Well, that certainly would meet the criteria of it. And, when you stop and think about it, David, the most precious thing that a human has is family. I mean, that supersedes everything. That is something.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, Rick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to save it. Now, a lot of times they are now having laws against bullying, and bullying is a lot of times verbal. Like kids have been bullied on Facebook and caused them to commit suicide. Now, could we even go the route of maybe Watchtower is bullying Jehovah's Witnesses, causing them to shun their kids? Because it's supposed to be only spiritual, but then they're kicking these kids out that are even underage because they're not following their religion and they're not even talking to them, as their own children. So I'm wondering if maybe somehow we could even go the route of Watchtower bullying, the Jehovah's Witness family members to shun their children. Like they're going above and beyond.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I'm sorry, your first name is?
I'm under the radar.
Okay, so you're spot on. Within the narrative of the New York State, I'm just going with New York State right now. I'm not going with the Department of Justice, their definition of a hate crime, which is very similar to New York State's. But yes, there is a section in there that talks about bullying, and that can be certainly construed as a hate crime, depending on the outcome of that bullying. So once again, we have to look at, I bully someone. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. We know all that. So I can bully you all day long. You can just laugh at me and walk away. But if the bullying creates such a state of affairs for a person where they commit suicide, or they commit homicide, or they have a mental breakdown, they lose their job, they lose their family, they get divorced, whatever the case may be, now we're talking about something a little bit different. So now that all gets jettisoned up a little bit higher. And in my investigative writing and in what I know, and with family that I have that are Jehovah's Witnesses, that my brother-in-law and sister-in-law have been kind enough to help me understand, bullying is definitely part of all this. And of course, the shunning, I heard earlier on, about half an hour ago, this gentleman came on and said he hasn't talked to his kids in 4 or 5 years and this and that. I mean, my goodness gracious. I mean, this is horrible, terrible things. But yes, bullying is part of this whole narrative, of course. Yeah.
Hi, this is Apostle Baby. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi. So I just looked up an article from 1987. Where the Jehovah's Witnesses took the Watchtower to court or something to that effect. And what I'm reading here is that the emotional harm suffered by a person who is ostracized by friends and family must be tolerated by society under the Constitution as a price well worth paying to safeguard the right of religious difference that all citizens enjoy. United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. So if you could look up the history of what the Watchtower has done so far, how they've counteracted that, it would equip you to understand what's going to come next. Because once they get wind of you, I promise you, they will try to sue your pants off of you. Even though their pants are on fire because they're lying, they will sue the pants off of you. Just for having the gall. Just for having the gall. So just know that they have this aggressive nature. And yes, bullying is a form, shunning is a form of bullying. It's actually documented now.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And thank you for your comments on that. I think my brother-in-law and sister-in-law are probably listening in right now. They know me quite well, and they know that I'm not the kind of a person that backs down from a fight. That's not the way I was brought up. That's not the way I roll. So I'm not, I understand what you're saying. But if someone wants to come after me and they want to cause me some problems, let them do it. I'm ready for the fight, and we'll see where it goes.
Good. I just want you to kind of be prepared of knowing what to expect. For instance, in Canada.
Yeah, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law have already mentioned a few things, and particularly if I get to go on this radio talk show that I mentioned a few minutes ago. It's one of the more popular talk shows. In fact, it has really tens of thousands of listeners, and there's some very, very influential people that come onto this talk show. For instance, just the other day, there was a gentleman that came on, and he was part of the Trump administration economic advisor. He was a guest, and so they get a lot of people. And if I get on there with the assemblyman and I start talking about this from a secular and non-secular way, because my article talks about shunning from secular and non-secular, I wanted to be balanced. I would imagine my phone is going to light up a little bit, and that's okay. Let it happen. I'm ready for the fight.
Good, because I was going to mention that in Canada, they somebody, I believe his name is Wall, he went to court because of the effects of shunning. And what literally happened was the lawyer specifically lied by omission, and even the United Nations, there was somebody from the United Nations that showed up on their behalf to speak about how wonderful they are. So they show up equipped, and so the Watchtower won. And so I appreciate you so much. I just don't want you to be blindsided when.
I thank you. I appreciate I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate your concern. And I know my eyes are wide open on this, and I'll be okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. You'll be okay.
Thank you
I'll
so
just
much.
have to remember that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I worry sometimes, but thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
So much,
God bless.
Professor. Okay. God bless you too.
Well, David,
Hi,
David, we got a lot of people listening in here tonight, and it's really, really good And you know what you're talking about, Jehovah's Witnesses being involved in a hate crime, that's not far-fetched. I know in this country, because of the First Amendment that was brought up earlier, that's one of the issues that they kind of stand on, is they have freedom of speech. If they don't want to talk to someone, they don't
That's
have
right.
to. And I went, in fact, I did meet with a congressman here in Massachusetts back it was
Okay.
around 2005. And the congressman's name was Lynch, Congressman Lynch. And I went
Okay.
down there to meet with him. And I was explaining to him, I spent 3 hours there with him. I explained to him about the shunning policies in the Watchtower and how they really treat people in a very disrespectful way, where people commit suicide
Right.
and what have you. Now, he mentioned to me
Right.
at the time, and I brought Watchtower literature with me and showing all of the incidents where shunning is what they do and at the laws of the land, actually even going back to a November 1953 Watchtower article. They actually said in that article, David, that if the laws of the land permitted, they would kill you if you left the Watchtower. Yeah. So you might want some of those articles. I can mail them to you, and you can.
Yeah, I can call. Yeah, I can contact you down the road, and you and I can have a conversation. You can get some of that stuff to me.
Oh
That'd be
yeah,
great.
but you know, talking with Congressman Lynch, he said, well, you know, shunning really isn't a crime. He says, you know, even he said even his own children, he said, don't talk with him. So
you know what though, Rick? There's a big difference between a child being excuse my French, everybody. There's a big difference between a child being pissed off at his mom or dad because mom and dad want to discipline that kid, and the kid wants what he wants, and no, you're not going to get it. So the kid doesn't talk to mom and dad for a couple of days. Listen, I remember, I'm a 70-year-old man. I remember when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years of age, whatever, and I got mad at my parents, and I didn't talk to them for 2 or 3 days. That's one thing. That is not even in the same arena as what the Jehovah's Witnesses are doing. How they are you know, supporting this horrible shunning where you can't talk to your family members, you can't talk to friends that you've known, you are completely isolated away to the point where, again, as we all know, and your listeners know this better than me, how people have severe PTSD. They've seen people commit suicide and homicides. That is a whole different realm. So, you know, it takes time for things to change. But I think that depending on who comes into office in 2023 and what my friend in the assembly can do to help me, I think that maybe I can get an audience and maybe we can have a discussion and really look at this with open eyes.
Well, absolutely. Well, no, that's great. Hold on one second.
Jump in here, Rick?
Go ahead, Joe. Yep.
Oh, yeah, I've been listening, and David, I appreciate what you're doing. I truly do. And Rick,
hey, Joe, that's my brother-in-law, Joe.
Yeah. What we're doing, we've made a couple phone calls to a lawyer so far, and we'll be meeting with him soon. And we're going to be lodging a letter to the elders, and maybe even to whoever else, whatever other offices that we can of them, just stating that how we feel about our being slandered in the congregation.
Sure.
And that we'll go to whatever efforts we have to the full extent of the law, to remediate that. So we're going to be doing that soon. It costs, but it's a small cost.
Sure.
For something like that. Number one. Number two, basically, because of the Watchtower is functions as a non-profit organization of the United Nations, and what they're doing basically, it's almost like government subsidized abuse. They're actually being helped to do something that's resulting in damage and harm to people. Now, whether or not they look at it that way is another story. Maybe they want something like this. I don't know. I really don't know. The government and the witnesses, I'm sure, work in tandem. I'm almost positive of that. They really do. So whether or not they have some nefarious purpose, I wouldn't doubt it at all. And honestly, they all sit on the same board, so to speak, at the top.
Right.
And they're probably all guilty of the same crimes as well. So one would not want to rat out the other because they have a blackmail situation against each other. I think that's what we're all up against. But honestly, I think the biggest lever against the shunning, the way they've set it up, is in public opinion. In other words, if the court of public opinion determines that it's very unreasonable for a people or a religion or a person to do it, I think that's going to be probably the most powerful. And that's why I think exposing it the way you're attempting to, and we are as well, the radio and whatever other media, that I think is going to be the most effective. I really do.
Well, I agree with you, Joe. And one of the final things I was going to say, because I have to kind of get along here, I got a few more minutes, Rick, if anybody wants to call in. But again, as I said earlier, my eyes are open on this, and I know. Look, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think, as my brother-in-law just said so well, it's the court of a public opinion. So if nothing else, that my article gets published, and I believe it's going to be. I have a magazine called Virginia Quarterly Review. It's one of the more prestigious magazines in the country. It's under review right now to be published. I'm praying to God they will put it in. If it doesn't happen, I have other options. But with that, and if I can go on to this talk radio station that I mentioned a little while ago with the assemblyman, if nothing else, I'll bring more awareness to what's going on. And who knows what can happen from that. That could just snowball down the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah, David, we will contact 107 as well and just let them know where we're at with it as well. So to help.
Yeah. So Rick, that's where I'm going with all this, and I said, we'll see what happens. And if nothing else, there'll be awareness of what's going on, what's happening here.
Well, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to really expose the Watchtower to it's a hate crime. And really, we've talked about this as well a few months back, actually a year or so ago. Belgium, the country of Belgium, they actually brought the Jehovah's Witnesses before their high court for a trial on hate crimes. And Jehovah's Witnesses were inciting, or at least talking to the court about how they've been shunned and how hurtful it's been. So that's another great story. So I've got a lot of things I could give you.
I'm sorry, Rick. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that trial you're talking about in Belgium, I have that in my article.
Yeah. Well, very, very important to bring this up. as you meet with the Congress, you meet with the state legislator as well, because
Right,
this
right.
other countries are acknowledging this, but for some reason, whether it's the First Amendment or whatever, in here in the United States, they don't look at it as a big issue. But people are committing
Right.
suicide, as you say, over this, David. It's
Absolutely.
really affecting so many people. It's terrible.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And like I say, at the end of the day, if all I do is bring some awareness to what's going on, well, then I think I've done my job. I obviously I hope that it goes a little farther than that, and I can get in front of either the assembly in 2023 when the new seats are voted in, and new committees are brought in. And if that doesn't work out, then I'll with the help of my a friend in the legislature, I'll try to work my way through the federal end of it, and we'll see where that takes me.
Well, good man, David. So listen, you do what you have to do, but thank you for coming on tonight and being with us.
You're welcome.
You're very encouraging, and I want you to know there's many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that are rooting for you, so keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, Rick. Thanks for having me come back on again, and thanks to all your listeners, and God bless you all. Have a great evening.
Well, you too. Well, there you go. I mean,
All right,
look at friends.
take care.
This is something. Let's just kind of let your hair down here a little bit. Well, let's just kind of chill out. Let's just talk a little bit together. We know how damaging it is to be shunned. I have family members, so I can speak with confidence here. I can speak with something that's happening to me. I'm shunned by many family members, and I'm sure you listening there tonight, many of you guys are too. It's a terrible practice, and it's very hatred. It's a hate crime, and I do agree with David on that. But you guys, let's just sit back here. Let's just talk about some things that are very troubling. We've been witnesses, many of us. I was a witness for 50 years. And some of you guys listening in, maybe you've only been a witness for a few years. But still, they got a hold of your mind. And they rented space in your head. And it's all stinking thinking. And you say, well, how do you flush this out? Can you just turn a switch and get this all out of your head? No, you can't. It takes a little while. But what we're doing here tonight is very therapeutic. It's helping people realize that they're not alone. If you just left the Watchtower, you're saying, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me now? I'm going to apostate. Am I going to die at Armageddon? No, there's a lot of people listening in here tonight, and you can see them. They're typing in comments on YouTube. They're commenting here on our Six Screens radio network, and they're telling everyone how they've been touched by the tentacles. So you're not the only one. But one time, if you roll the clocks back, if you go back to the early 90s, there wasn't any forums like this. As a matter of fact, the internet was just getting started. And if you wanted to, converse with ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, you had to get on email and write to them individually. And I can remember doing that as well. But the internet has opened up a whole new arrangement. And this is what's really becoming the great equalizer, that the Watchtower is now under suspicion. Many people are now seeing what's going on in the Watchtower. Well, we had a good night here tonight.
Hey, Rick?
Yes, Susan.
I have one question, and maybe someone can answer for me about this disfellowshipping. When I studied, no one ever told me about disfellowshipping. I didn't hear about the practice until after I was a baptized witness. And I'm not saying that I would have stopped getting baptized had I known I could get disfellowshipped at some point in time. I probably would have thought, well, not me. But I mean, I don't know, maybe other witnesses who got baptized, maybe they weren't made aware of disfellowshipping before they got baptized. Because I think it's like the Watchtower is almost hiding this, and they don't tell people. So I'm wondering if I'm a unique case or other people have had that happen to them also.
Wow, that's a great thought, Susan. I know when I studied with the witnesses and went through all of the different questions you had to answer before you could become baptized, but that never came up about shunning or disfellowshipping. How do you guys feel? I mean, you're listening in. We got a lot of people listening in tonight. When you were studying, did you ever know how evil the Watchtower is when it comes to shunning and disfellowshipping you? Did you hear much about that? Or was it kind of like you didn't know? You just kind of signed up and said, fine, I'll take it. What do you think? I think most of you guys listening in tonight will agree with Susan. You didn't know that. It's like some of these con games that con people are playing on you. Sign on the dotted line. Oh, yeah, sign on the dotted line and you get screwed. I mean, really, that's what the Watchtower did to all of us. You know, sign on the dotted line, become a baptized witness. And here you are today. You know, many people right now are listening in tonight to the 6 screens. They're in a private little room, a little bedroom, a little corner of their house. They don't want anyone to hear what's going on. They're being shunned. And I know you are there. I know you're listening in tonight. And you're being shunned and you're saying, this is not fair.
Hey, Rick?
Yes.
Hey, Rick, you know, in listening with Susan, wouldn't this be a violation of informed consent? Because you could not give consent to something that you were not informed in. And if they consider it a contract, you know, between, you know, the baptized and Watchtower, then aren't they violating, you know, the contract as far as letting someone know, like, all the clauses of what the contract should be? Just a question.
Well, I'll just first of all say this under the radar. Well, what contract do we make with the Watchtower? The contract would be when we get baptized. That would solidify the contract. That now makes us an adherent to the Watchtower. But, you know, when we signed that contract, so to speak, we signed it when we got baptized. Now, when we got baptized, as Susan just brought up a very good thought, we didn't know how evil, how sinister, how hard it was going to be on all of us because we became a witness. They kind of never shared that with us. And I think that should be brought up front. But, you know, what do you do? I mean, who do we complain to? The state? The Attorney General? Who do we complain to? There's no one to complain to. We're kind of left out in the cold. So I'm not wondering, but I know for a fact that when we got baptized...
The idea of a civil case for slander is valid.
You wouldn't correct.
So, Pixie, go ahead and say that again.
I said, I think the idea of a civil case for slander is legally valid.
All right, so we would be, who would be the slanderer?
The injured party would be the person who was disfellowshipped. And they could bring a civil case against the local elders that slandered them.
So the local elders, how would you say the local elders slandered an individual witness?
Because their character would be impugned and they would verbally have been damaged in the reproof. So as citizens, the person disfellowshipped could bring a civil suit against the elders that slandered them. And if we had a whole bunch of civil suits like that locally, you know, that would, I think that's valid in a like a court of Massachusetts or Virginia or Illinois or something.
Well, no, in fact, I get what you're saying, because even in my judicial committee hearing, I believe I was slandered. And I'm sure most Jehovah's Witnesses that go into a judicial committee hearing are slandered. And you got a point with that. I suppose you could try a civil suit. I don't know how far it would go, but every state gives you the opportunity to do that. It's not criminal, but it's civil. But in my case, I would say that, yeah, I was slandered. You know, they said things about me that I would not take to heart and look at it as being true. They called me many, many names. They defamed my character. They basically said that I left God, which I didn't. So, in other words, I suppose you could really, if you had enough money and you said, okay, fine, I'm going to bring up a civil suit against the Watchtower, at least the local elders, perhaps you could do that. I'm surprised no one's done that yet. In fact, I've always even thought that you could bring this up on a small claims court where you really wouldn't need a lot. Yeah, you could really.
That's what it would be.
Yeah, you could bring it up on a small claims court. You could say that you're looking
Now, the other case that's kind of in the way was a Supreme Court case, and the man was a priest for the Greek Orthodox Church. And it was a Supreme Court case in the highest court of the land, and the Supreme Court ruled that the Greek Orthodox Church could discipline and have a tribunal of their own priest. So that would get in the way. But if there was a case that the state, like let's say it was the state of Indiana or Illinois or something, and the state couldn't figure out how to try it, that would go on to the docket of the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court would say, oh, well, this is on top of the stack here. We've got a case of these courts of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're not really lawyers, and it's not really a court. So they could then have to see that issue again. But that's in the way because they said that a Greek Orthodox Church could have a trial internally of their own priests. So that's kind of in the way of what I call kangaroo courts of the kingdom.
Pixie, didn't Jehovah's Witnesses change how they state that people are disfellowship? Wasn't there a case of slander, of defamation, or libel way back when? Because they used to say, you know, whatever, and then now they say they're no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Didn't they word that?
Hello?
Someone had sued them for slander?
Hello? Hello?
That's a very interesting. I don't know. I'll have to look at it.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead, brother. We got a brother coming in. Go ahead, brother.
Sorry, it was Zachary. I'm glad you brought that up, Hunter, because the witnesses did used to say so-and-so has been disfellowshipped for conduct unbecoming a Christian. And they cut out that statement about conduct unbecoming a Christian and turned it into so-and-so is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Hello, this is Fran.
Go ahead, Fran.
Yeah, the problem is not so much, yes, they do say that Joe and Fran Garino are no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but the problem is the action that's taken after that. And so we have spoken to a lawyer, and basically they said maybe $375 to write up a letter, and it would say that if our name is mentioned at the Kingdom Hall, that it would come under defamation of character. So we're just waiting for them to get back to us. But he seemed pretty positive about it, and so we'll keep you posted.
Well, Fran, that's let's stop right there. That is remarkable. So you did go to a lawyer, and he did write to the elders saying that if your name is read, there'll be.
No, he didn't. He didn't do it yet. Joe started the conversation. This was a phone conversation, and he said this is what they can do. So we called them and left a message. We said we want to go ahead with the letter, but nothing. We haven't paid anything yet, but this is the course that we're going to take.
Yeah, frankly, Rick, I think they're doing some research because honestly, I don't think they want to take any missteps here. I think it's something that is not as simple as it sounds.
Yeah, I don't want you to, waste $375.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that at all. That's not what I'm worried about. That's pocket change, seriously, for the effect that it could have.
Yeah. Well, that's true, but
what's important is the important thing is just making the right tactical decision so as to have some good effect. And honestly, I view this as a war. I truly view this as a war, and that's the only way we're going to try and wage it.
well, no, it is a war. I mean, really, all of us ex-witnesses that are being shunned, I suppose that's a good way to look at it. It is a war. Geez, we're looked at as the biggest enemy in the world. There's no bigger enemy in the eyes of an active witness than an apostate. My God, they painted us as the most evil people on the planet.
That's and that truly is character defamation. It really is.
Yeah. Well, it is.
Rick, can I ask Joe a question?
Sure.
Joe.
Yep.
I was wondering, as I mentioned before you become a witness, they don't tell you about your fellowshipping, so it's not full disclosure. So
exactly.
So when you go to, get baptized and say, I want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses, it would be like you going to the bank and you're going to sign, for the house, and then they say, well, the bank's going to charge you now. After you do that, it's going to say, by the way, the bank's going to charge $300 a year for the loan, something like that. They didn't disclose it to you, but now you've already signed, so it's not full disclosure. So I'm wondering, could that be part of the lawsuit? Because they didn't tell you what you were signing up for.
The lawyers, the Watchtower lawyers, are pretty sharp with what they do. I don't know. I really don't know. I do know that at the baptism, they made as a really big point that all the candidates stand up and in a loud voice that we state whatever we stated. I can't even remember exactly what it was, but for all I know, I think that's where the hooks went in. I really do.
Yeah, I agree.
I truly do. And this is where the lawyers, I think the lawyers at Watchtower get paid really well. And they've got it sewn up pretty tight. But this is where we're going to find out.
Okay, well, thank you.
Oh, thank you, too, for caring. Thank you.
Yeah, well, Joe, that's amazing.
Hey, Rick and Sue?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, I'm going to make a point that I've made hundreds of times on six screens over the last 16 years. When you study the truth book, towards the end, they say if you run into some serious sin or you committed something that was wrong, it says you can go to the elders and get advice, and they'll pray over you and so forth. It says you can. That's optional. But they know that later on, once you become a baptized Jehovah's Witnesses, they teach the Aiken theory that if you've committed a sin, you have to go to the elders, or the Holy Spirit is taken from the congregation, and then the elders will feel the loss of the Holy Spirit. They'll have an investigation. Don't know how they were supposed to have that investigation, but they will find the person that has committed the serious sin and disfellowship him so the congregation can stay clean. Well, another thing, that these are man-made rules. Just like the Sanhedrin put over 600 rules on the people, and they burden them down with these rules and regulations. That's what the Watchtower has done. They burden people. And, it's just so wrong what they're doing. And they're getting away with it. Maybe some good lawsuits by a lot of people will stop it. But I want the audience to realize that at the end of the 70s, they decided to do away with this fellowshipping. And so for 6 months, they didn't disfellowship anybody. And the people that were disfellowship prior to that time,
You can talk to them. You can have them over to dinner. You have a good time with them. And then after 6 months, a complete reversal. You can't talk to a disfellowship person. These are laws that the Watchtower Society has made up to hurt people and put their elders in a position of ultimate authority. It's up to the elders in your congregation whether you live in the new system or you don't. And most of these men, I know the ones on my judicial committee, these men have no education. I mean, one of the guys that disfellowshipped me sold snap-on hand tools. The other one had a 10th grade education, drove a school bus, and the other one worked in a department store. You know, these people, and the reason they do it, they think the Holy Spirit has come to them and has made them really good jurisprudence people. But it doesn't.
Judge you.
I'm sorry?
Sir, they're not qualified to judge you.
Well, they're not qualified for anything. But here's
No, they're
the
not.
problem.
You know, if
When I became a ministerial servant, I believe that appointment was by Holy Spirit. So anything that I would tell somebody, I felt that the Holy Spirit was telling me to tell them. And that's why a lot of these elders think, hey, you know, that they're Jesus Christ themselves, and they're not. And we know that Jehovah's Witnesses is a cult, a dangerous, destructive cult. They ruin people's lives. They ruin families. I haven't seen my sons in 30 years. And that they would tell my sons, I'm despicable. If the laws of the land would allow for me to be stoned, those elders and those that come to my house and take me out, dig a hole, throw me in it, and they would stone me. You know, I mean, adultery is serious. I don't say it's not, but you know what? How much can you punish someone? You know, I live with this guilt, you know, for 30 years, 32 years. I have washed my sins in the blood of the Lamb, and that gives me great relief. But still, you know, I would like to see my children sometime, and I can't. It's a horrible, horrible organization. And the point again is they stopped disfellowshipping. They said, we're not going to do it any longer. 6 months later, or a year later, they reinstitute it. That tells you one thing. These rules came from the governing body. These men, they're driving Bentleys and buying $100 bottles of scotch and playing around with young children. That's who's making these rules, and they hurt a lot of people. Thank you all.
Brother, my heart goes out to you, brother. We're starting to feel what you've been going through. And this is why, honestly, I think the hooks have already been sunken into the friends. I think we can almost forget about the elders at this point and just realize that it's the actual, in the hearts of the friends. When I say friends, I mean the members in the congregation. They're not my friends. The members who already think it's an act of faith to God to shun anyone who even who they think is even bad association, let alone fellowship. And until their neighbor or their close associate looks at them and says, "Do you still shun? Don't you know that's really not very loving at all?" Until they say that, until a new feeling, that they've developed a different feeling, it's going to continue. And that's where I think it really has to be a social enlightening that has to take place.
Well, that's well said, Joe. That's well said. And always good to hear from Dick. You know, so many people have been touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower. And there's many people that never spoken up on this program that have as well. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to weigh in on this. I was just wondering, I know I've heard of petitions and class act. I was thinking of like groups of people getting together, pooling their resources and doing some sort of class action lawsuit or whatever. But I just wondered, there are so many cases where it's obvious there's a witch hunt because people have found out about the indiscretions of the organization, or simply they happen to come across something Ray Franz wrote or something like that. And, it's not that they've done anything terribly wrong. They just have discovered these things. And if I was imagining like a scenario where a child gets baptized, is faithful, doesn't really do anything wrong, goes on YouTube one night and finds that, it's a cult, discovers all the in their 20s or something, discovers this sort of thing, and then is forced into a situation whereby they have to choose between their family, seeing their family, their friends, and losing their whole social structure. There must be some way to legally attack it. I feel like it's possible. It's just finding the right person to do it. But anyway, that's my thought, and I'm going to get off the air, but I hope somehow this can get more publicity, because it's just so hurtful.
That's our goal, brother. Our goal is to affect that in our community. That's what our goal is.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Oh, it's horrible. It's flat out war as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And thanks for bringing light to it. You guys are great. Love what you do. Thanks.
Well, thank you, brother, for calling in. That's what's going on here, friends, is what we're witnessing in real time is Jehovah's Witnesses throwing the towel in. Isn't that great? I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm as happy as a clam here. Really, when you stop and think about it, what you're listening to here tonight in real time is Jehovah's Witnesses saying, I've had enough. Something's got to be done about this evil organization. And boy, we're so glad we have all of this happening here tonight. Why don't you call in? If you haven't called in before, muster up the courage. Don't be a stranger. Call us right now. The number, if you're on YouTube, the number is coming right across on the bottom of our YouTube feed. You can see it. So why don't you muster up the courage and come in and say hello to us tonight? We'd love to have you do that. Is there any?
Hello, Mr. Fern.
Yes, Ken. Go ahead from Northern Michigan.
Okay. I've been listening with interest here, and I appreciate the information that comes across the Six Screens Network here. And I want to answer some of the questions tonight. For one thing, regarding our information that's come across the last 16 years, and regarding the only one case I had regarding this, regarding the disfellowshipping and everything like that, nobody was ever told that once you join this religion, you will not be able to leave it. Nobody was ever told that once you join this religion, you won't be able to go to any other church or any other religious function and so forth. That's been just about unanimous and all that. So if there's somebody out there that's listening to Six Screens that have been told that all this stuff, I would certainly appreciate hearing from them. But all these ex-witnesses or people that have been involved with the witnesses, they only found out what was going on later. I can attest to the fact myself, regarding a church I belong to, there was a whole lot of things I didn't know until many years later. Because back then, in the 70s and 80s and everything like that, we didn't have internet like we do now. Right now, this day and age, you can go on the internet, you can punch in any religious denomination you want, you're going to get their history right from Jump Street. I mean, to right now on there. So, but you didn't have that opportunity back then. You had to if you wanted to get that information back in the 70s and 80s, you had to go to a library. You had to thumb through books, you know, or Dewey Decimal cards or anything like that to do your research and all that and so forth. That is the way it was and so forth. And I have to say that I am in the same boat. Although I'm not an ex-witness, but I'm an ex-something else. I have to say I've been in the same boat as the ex-witnesses. And in regards to the stuff we've talked about tonight, regarding the shunning and all that, that the legislative intent of the First Amendment was that we, the people, now if you look at the Declaration of Independence, it says we, the people. And we are the ones that we're supposed to have freedom of religion. First of all, not a religious society dictating stuff over us, but they reverse the situation now and then. And if you go to the Declaration of Independence, it says we the people, and it says that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, the right to pursue happiness, you know, and so forth. And everything like that, and then we go to a little bit further down the road to the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights. It says we need to be free from unlawful search and seizure of our property in our homes. Now, I'm sitting at my table here tonight. I don't have my paperwork with me, but still have to forgive me for that. But and then we have a constitutional amendment that says no person shall be deprived of the right of liberty with life, liberty, or happiness without due process of law, or something like that. And we don't have none of that stuff in this Watchtower Society. Now, the Watchtower Society has come to people's doors, and they have held their kangaroo courts, as they call them over there, you know, and said that, well, you're out of here. They've held their kangaroo courts at their churches or whatnot and so forth. That is unconstitutional. They don't have any right to set up these constitutional courts, these unconstitutional courts, you know, to try anybody and everything like that, pursuant to the original legislative intent of the Constitution and everything like that and so forth. And I mean, there is no crime under common law of, you know, changing your religion. You have a right to do that. And then in Michigan, we have a constitutional law here that says that we have a right to freedom of conscience in addition to freedom of religion. And in the Fush versus Meisel case, it says that you have a right to resign with or without reason from your religion. So yeah, there is multiple human rights violations. There's multiple civil rights violations in regards to that's been perpetrated by the Watchtower Society. But the problem is, it's a civil matter, and the only way you can handle it is either you take it to court yourself if you have the knowledge, or else you get a hold of an attorney. Now, that is wrong. There should be some enforcement, and if there was some enforcement, we would be able to address this issue of shunning as being unconstitutional as it is. But instead, we have unconstitutional courts that we got right now and so forth handling the matter and ruling one way or the other and everything like that. And most of the time, that's just a pocketbook issue, because we know the Watchtower Society is paying off more of these politicians than we realize.
Well, Ken, I mean, I'm glad you come up and you speak about all the legal jargon and what have you.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something. I mean, my feelings here, after dealing with the Watchtower for 16 years, being in it, I mean, 16 years out of it, 50 years into it. Well, let me tell you something. I'm just to the point that the Watchtower is able to get away with what they do because they are fraternizing with the big boys. Somehow, some way, they have people in higher places that are putting the kibosh to all of this. We can complain, we can groan, we can bring lawsuits on. I'm not being negative, folks, but I'm just telling you, it just doesn't seem to go anywhere. There's no traction. The Watchtower is involved with the coming New World Order. Whether you want to believe it or not, I mean, you do what you want with it. But somehow, some
Yes,
way,
I couldn't agree more, Mr. Fair, and that's positively and absolutely correct. They're connected with these other, the New World Order and these other government entities. And you're right. They got people bought and paid for in higher places. I've always said that several years, and other people have. They got people bought in higher places that's putting the kibosh, like you said, to our civil and human rights. So
well, that's
I think the victory is going to be in the arena of the public opinion.
well, we hope the
And
public.
only then will we get to stop.
Well, Ken, we hope the public's going to be smart enough. And I really do. I really somewhat believe in the public. I believe that, if enough people really see the injustice, if enough people really see how evil and corrupt, not just the Watchtower is, but even world officials are, I'm really hoping that people will wake up, smell the coffee, and say enough is enough. But somehow the big guys are pulling the wool over our eyes, including the Watchtower. And, we've been ramping and raging and everything else about the Watchtower here for 16 years. And some of the things we bring up are just so outrageous, you would think the government would be clamping down on them. But we never see it happen. But I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. But man, I tell you put forth all your effort, all of your strength, all of your might to expose these bums, and they just get a free ride. It's like a get out of jail free card. They just seem to be able to move forward and with their agenda. But maybe something will happen here soon. And what I'm thinking, let me just say this. What I'm seeing happening in here, I have mixed emotions. Did you ever have mixed emotions? Do you know what mixed emotions are? Your brain? Yeah, I'm going to give the definition of a mixed emotion. A mixed emotion is your mother-in-law driving over a cliff with your brand new Cadillac. I mean, that's a little joke, but at the same time, I think you get the point. We have mixed emotions. We don't know how to really feel about all of this in the Watchtower. We know that they're getting away with murder, so to speak. And how are they doing it? And, our mind just wanders around. Well, how are they doing this? But the thing that I'm really seeing here that's helping me, and I hope it's helping you too, there's so many people right now that are leaving the Watchtower in big time. I've used the word droves before, but I'm not even going to use the word droves. I'm going to use the word there's a mass exodus. That's the term I'm using. There is a mass exodus right now in the Watchtower organization. More people are leaving this organization right now. Apostasy is running rampant. There are more disfellowshippings for apostasy than ever in the history of the Watchtower. And you can see it with just our little program here, just on our Six Screens network. You guys can see it. You can see the amount of new people calling in. We had about 5 or 6 new people tonight. And then take a look at some of the forums online. Take a look at Reddit. 70,000+ people. And this is something that exponentially has been increasing in the last few years. But in the last few months, let's just go with that. Something has happened. What has happened? I'm not sure. But I see so many people packing their bags from the Watchtower. Friends, that makes me happy. This could be the death nail of the Watchtower. We can rant, we can groan, we can moan, we can write to politicians, we can do all of this, and some of it might be okay. But the best thing is people finding out for themselves how evil this organization is. Well, that's a wonderful thing.
Yes, Mr. Farron, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And that's where we're going to get our strength, and that's where we're going to win our victory, is if we get the people that come together and everything like that and say, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to put up with it no more. Watchtower Society, pack up the Watchtower Society, tell them to get out and don't come back anymore.
Their history.
Yeah.
Good man, Ken. Well, I'm with you. Well, my goodness, we have so many things to talk about here tonight. Listen, we've got Apostle Babe. She's your favorite apostate. She's going to be coming up here very shortly. So you want to listen to her. If you can't sleep tonight and you're pacing the floors and you're saying, oh, my goodness, I wish I could go to sleep, but you don't know what to do, Apostle Babe. She'll be coming on in just a few minutes. And listen to her. She goes all night long. And then in the wee hours of the morning, have you ever listened to some of these programs in the wee hours of the morning? I'm saying like 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning. You can't believe that people are calling to the 6 screens that late at night. And Apostle Babe is there. And she's helping so many former Jehovah's Witnesses. She's helping Jehovah's Witnesses to work their way out of the Watchtower. She's on after us tonight. Well, friends, I'll tell you what, I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased with the amount of people that have been coming in tonight and commenting. And I want to thank you all for doing that. And we have a few minutes left. If you'd like to come in and say something, the lines are open. So is there something on your mind you'd like to tell us here tonight? We got a couple of minutes left. If you'd like to do it, go ahead. You're on with us. If not, we're going to be going to Apostle Babe. Well, we want to thank you all for coming into our program tonight.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Rick, I wanted to mention, has anybody seen that, I don't know who it was on Facebook, but they posted a picture of a brother and a sister at the beach, allegedly witnessing, but then one of them had a cockatoo. I think the guy had a cockatoo on his shoulder, and then the girl had a live monkey on her shoulder, and they were, supposedly witnessing. But the guy he was a young guy. They're both attractive young people, and he had like his biceps showing, like he works out all the time, and it almost seems like he may have had like his sleeves rolled up to show people, his muscular arms or something. Has anybody seen that? I saw that earlier today.
Yeah, I saw that come across Facebook. I didn't really get into it under the radar. But what bothers you about that?
Well, the way they're showing that guy, all, looking sexy and muscular and rolling his sleeves up to show his muscular arms. Obviously he works out. And the Bible says something about bodily training, that, spiritual knowledge is better than bodily training or something. They used to throw that in our face all the time about, working out, with weights and all that. And it just seemed like it was very, very worldly and sexually suggestive, and here they are out, allegedly witnessing at a beach. So I just thought it was kind of ironic.
Yeah, well, I kind of got the same thought. It was like a sexual situation going on there. But, you see that coming.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the cockatoo and the monkey was to enforce somehow about the paradise where we'll be living with all these animals or something too.
Yeah. Well, under the radar, I mean, you've been listening in for a long time. I mean, what do you think? Do you think we're making progress here? Do you think there's more and more people getting out of the Watchtower right now? What do you think, under the radar?
I think so. I mean, I've been listening in and talking since, maybe 2014 or 15? I forget exactly. And I see it's like a total unbelievable turnaround of people that are talking now. Like, I never knew Pixley before. And there's a lot of new people that are constantly calling in now, that I've never even heard them speak before, and people are, coming in, they feel nervous, but they still, speak up and they talk. And I can just see, about the increase of people, coming on here and talking on here. And it's really wonderful. It's really cool. And it shows that you've been really blessed by your program. I can see the changes and the increases exponentially over the years.
Well, no, it has.
Thank you for that. I thank you for it, and I'm sure everybody else thanks you for it. And you've probably saved many, many lives.
Well, thank you very much, Under the Radar. But I have to tell you, really, that what really makes the program, and where this is a different platform. This is different. We are different than the others. We have, in real time, like right now, you're in real time, and people can call in and talk and discuss how they've been touched by the tentacles. So this has been really good for people. I wish there was a platform like this when I was leaving the witnesses. Well, we want to thank everyone for coming in tonight. My goodness, what a program we had. We really enjoy doing this every Saturday night. And you are the guys that make the program. When people hear you calling in, let me tell you something, that makes all the difference in the world. Why wouldn't you like that? Geez, I would want to hear that. When I was just leaving the Watchtower, I'd want to hear these people calling in. I want to hear what they're saying. And we want to thank everybody. There's been so many people, I can't even name them all tonight, that have been coming into the 6 screens. Now, tomorrow we do 6 Screen Sunday. You don't want to miss that. Now, we don't talk about theological issues on Saturday night. I know a lot of people, well, they've been so damaged, so spiritually abused. To talk about God is very difficult. But, if you are theologically connected and you want to learn more about what the Watchtower and how wrong they were with their theological teachings, well, come in tomorrow for 6 Screen Sunday, beginning at actually 12 o'clock. We have Theology Matters with Chad out of Illinois. And then we go to Knowing God. Now, the Knowing God program tomorrow at 1 o'clock, they're going to be talking about the God of the Watchtower versus the God of Christianity. You don't want to miss that program. And then at 2 o'clock, we have testimonies. Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses give their Christian testimony. And, this is how many Jehovah's Witnesses leave the organization and they become real Christians. You want to listen to that program tomorrow with Anne Marie. And then at 3 o'clock, we do JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. And that's our Sunday edition. And then at 4 o'clock, we have Jay Hess. He was one time associated with the writing department of the Watchtower. He'll be coming on tomorrow answering all your Bible questions. So don't be a stranger. Come in tomorrow. Same YouTube channel. We'll be here. I hope you're here beginning at 12 o'clock noon tomorrow, Sunday, October 9th, right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork. So now what we're going to do, and before we leave, though, I just want to say a couple of things. I really appreciate all of you guys listening in. And, there's still people that want to make donations. I don't want you to make a donation to the 6 Screens. I'm okay. I'm all right. This is not about money. This is about helping you. So what I'm saying is, if you really like what we do here at the 6 Screens, why don't you just say, I like you? Hit the like button, or subscribe to our channel, or share it on Facebook. That's all you have to do. That would make me a happy camper. And, I want to say this too. I want you guys to keep standing tall. Don't you ever give in, up, or out. And the last one, leaving the Watchtower, by all means, turn off the new light. We're going to Apostababe. She's your favorite apostate. She's coming on next with her Healing After the Watchtower program. Thank you very much for being with us. Apostababe next.